You ready, Kathy?
Yes.
Is it set? It's ready, set? Good evening, and if you'd all take your seats and cease the conversation, I would like to call to order this meeting, this regular meeting of the Encinitas City Council for Wednesday, September 18th, 2024 at 6 p.m. And if the clerk would please call the roll.
Yes, Mayor. One moment. Councilmember Lyons?
Here.
Councilmember Ehlers?
Here.
Councilmember Hinsey is absent. Deputy Mayor Blackwell?
Here.
And Mayor Krantz.
Here.
Record will show that all members are present with the exception of Councilmember Hinsey.
Okay, and if you are able, I would like to ask that you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, thank you all. Tonight we start our meeting with 4 special presentations. The first is a presentation from the sister city delegates on their trip and experience to Amakasa, Japan, our sister city. Nicole White.
All right, hello. My name is Nicole, and I just would like to introduce your 3 amazing delegates that represented you in Amaksa this summer. We have Tyler Overstreet, Quaid Kelly, and Alana Kumagai. All 3 students are from different schools. They did not know each other when they went on this trip, nor did they know myself. And Carolyn Cope, we had the honor of escorting them to Amoxa. So I think you will see how closely they grew and what amazing representatives they were of Encinitas.
The first thing we were shown in Amoxa was a presentation about the local population of Amoxa dolphins. The relationship the community fostered with the dolphins was beautiful, and they treated them as if they were any other resident of the city. We then boarded the boat and got to see the dolphins with our own eyes. The enthusiasm everybody working with the dolphins had was wonderful to see. After we disembarked the boat, we spent a little bit of time at a gorgeous lunch overviewing the inland sea, where we ate sashimi, sushi, and all sorts of other wonderful foods. Later, we took a visit to the local middle school, where the middle schoolers would show us a presentation they would do the following night at a local parade. We would try our best to imitate their dances.
After dancing and learning about traditional instruments, the students guided us through stations set up around the room. At one, there were games such as racing through rock, paper, scissors to attack your opponent with a plastic hammer, or challenges to see who could pick up the most candy using chopsticks. There was also an origami station where students taught us how to fold tops and swans with commendable patience. They were all such sweet kids, and getting to hear from them about their school and play games together was such a delightful experience. Later that day, we went to an art center where we learned how to make clay plates and bowls. Our teacher was patient and attentive, careful to demonstrate in a way so that we could still understand his instructions despite any language barriers. I love seeing such an emphasis on creativity in so many of the places we visited.
After the art experience, we went to the library. The Encinitas and Amoxa Central Library both have distinct architecture and are an essential part of community life. Their sister city library exhibit holds a beautiful collection of photos and gifts from the past year's exchanges. A custom skateboard, glass mosaic of poinsettias, and plaque of Moonlight Beach highlights Encinitas' unique character. Photos on the wall showed our first mayor and the many delegates that have been an important part of the cross-culture experience, providing a visual reminder of the link between our cities. It was motivational and inspiring to see we are part of something so unique and special in Encinitas. My favorite part of that day was reading The Giving Tree with the Superintendent of Education for Amoxa. This was not planned, but we both had a passion for learning and an appreciation for books. Reading and alternating English and Japanese, I thought about the themes of growth, kindness, and environmental ethics. It reminded me of our parks and rec and a commitment to stewardship of our natural spaces. Tree City USA, Arbor Days, and habitat restoration projects made me think about the trees that have come down and the sand that erodes from our beaches over the years. But what's more important is the efforts that replace them. The intergenerational experience highlighted many things that connect us to the people of Amoxa, and that book will always be important to me because of that experience. Following the library, the group finished the day with a delightful dinner of fish, chicken, and cow intestine dinner. Yep, I can tell you that eating was a highlight of the trip for me. The unique foods and tastes opened my eyes to the different perspectives and cultures of food. We tried it all with curiosity and gratitude to our hosts, and the truly special aspect of that dinner was the group moment where everyone came together and had a great time, even with the difference in language and culture. Around the tables, there were people dedicated to the celebration of friendship, exploration, and community.
For our second day as a group, we were allowed to meet the mayor and their own city council. It was very interesting seeing the way they ran things, and even as simple as the way they laid out their office was completely different than we did here. Meeting the mayor was wonderful. He showered us in gifts and told us all about the city and his own stay as the mayor. One of the things we exchanged to him, however, was a sign, custom made from reclaimed wood from the 101. This sign points the direction and the distance from Amoxa to Encinitas, mirroring our own sign that points to Amoxa. It's nice to have this bond between our cities. After meeting the mayor, we went to a more peculiar destination, the Scarecrow Village, an empty village inhabited by very lifelike scarecrows, as you can see there.
Afterwards, the group traveled to Sekitsu Village, a town located in the southwest of Moxa, which was the most anticipated part of the second group day in Amoxa. The coastal town is full of Amoxa's history and religious past. In the 16th century, Christians were persecuted in Japan, and this community suffered great losses. The Sekitsu Church is a World Cultural Heritage Site built in 1888 after prohibition of Christianity was lifted in Japan. While in the city, we got to explore more about their history, and it opened up conversations about faith and different spiritual practices. There was so much respect for all tradition and belief systems.
Following the church, we went to a tea ceremony, which was personally one of the highlights of the trip. The women, dressed elegantly in kimono, helped us prepare for the event, showing us how to correctly wear our yukata and jinbei and styling our hair. They performed a piece of music on traditional instruments while demonstrating the proper way of tea preparation. Their methodical and careful movements were incredible to watch, as it was evidently rich with tradition and every step was made very intentionally. After, we were given the opportunity to try it ourselves. We tried whisking green tea until it had the proper consistency and playing the instruments with sheets to guide us. One had strings that required small pick-like tools that you would put on your fingers to pluck the strings. Using the sheet music, the teachers taught us to play a simple traditional song. The other instrument was similar to a flute and required careful control of breath. This made their performance only more impressive as we quickly realized the skill and practice needed to play these instruments so deftly. After this, they taught us the art of flower arranging, which required careful measurement and cutting of each flower. They walked us through each step, and at the end, everyone had their own arrangement. Our teachers demonstrated with precision, clearly resulting from years and years of practice. To learn from such knowledgeable and kind teachers was a special experience.
For our final day, we boarded a water taxi, a boat, to visit the nearby Goshura Dinosaur Island. This boat took us through the inland sea, where we darted through the waves and the islands. It was truly a gorgeous landscape. What we were first going to visit to was a local middle school, who had plenty of things planned for us.
At the middle school, we met with another group of students and heard from them about their school. We learned that they had a smaller school, as Goshura was a smaller, tighter community. They guided us to the student kitchen classrooms, where they taught us how to make delicious sweet snacks. Together with the students, we mixed up the batter, cooked the pieces in hot water, dished them up with sweet black beans and syrups, and cleaned the dishes. We learned that sometimes students would help make meals there, which gave them confidence and familiarity in the kitchen. Moreover, there was a lot of emphasis on treating the school property and workstations with respect, as students helped clean the school at the end of each school day.
After time at the middle school,
The students had one more surprise for us, though. As we boarded our boat back, they handed us colorful ribbons that we were to hold as our boat darted into the horizon. The further we went, the longer the ribbons stretched until they eventually broke, going into the water and melting away. It was a very creative, beautiful gesture that I've never seen before. Later, we visited the Karasu Observatory, a viewing point overlooking the city, the islands, and the water. We took many photos, and it truly was a gorgeous view.
Now, after our time with the middle schoolers, we were honored to visit the Goshura Dinosaur Island Museum, where the middle schoolers led us through Amoxa's geological and biological past. Goshura Island is a unique place where many fossils can be discovered because of its geological features. And by the way, on the view, they were incredible. The best part of the experience, though, really, was how excited the students were when showing us around. Our host treated us with such a high level of respect, and they were so patient and kind, answering our questions and creating an absolute blast of an experience. I was also given props by the delegation for my ability to dig, and most importantly, hit rocks with enthusiasm for finding fossils on the hottest day of the trip.
Finally, we're each going to talk about the days with our host family. This was where the moments I hold dearest from this trip came from. My host family were wonderful to me. They took the time out of their week to show me the mountains, castles, hot springs, festivals, temples, and delicious foods of Japan. However, for every gorgeous vista or ancient shrine I was shown, it's the long car rides, the moments spent in the house just talking with my host family that really made me feel like I was truly welcome here. We would spend hours chatting about our lives and the differences and similarities between our cultures. I truly felt connected by the end of it. I wish I could go into greater detail about every single adventure they led me through, but if I did, I would be here for 4 hours.
My experience with my host family was absolutely unforgettable. They were so incredibly gracious and welcoming, including me in everything like family game night, basketball games, and birthday celebrations. They showed me so many amazing sights in Amoxa, from the tallest mountain to stunning hiking locations to shrines and hot springs. We went to malls and a local river where we could catch shrimp. One of the free days, we even went up to Kumamoto, where we visited Mount Aso and Kumamoto Castle. From mealtime to exploring many, many gorgeous places in Amoxa, my host family shared so much with me about their daily lives and practices. Getting to know them and smile and laugh together was so special, and I know I will treasure this forever. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to continue connecting online. I've learned so much from so many amazing people and made precious friendships because of this trip. I will be eternally thankful for this amazing opportunity and the people who made it possible.
My host family experience in Amoxa was truly incredible. I stayed with the Matsumori family that had 6 members, including Koharu, who is 14, Shoto, who is 8, Yushin, who is 6, and Oka, who is 3. It was eye-opening to see what life is like in Amoxa and dive headfirst in their everyday activities and culture. Some of my favorite things about the trip were the most subtle aspects of their lives, whether it was a hot spring group bath, playing cards and games with my host family, practicing baseball with a Japanese baseball team, and meals to shopping to firework festivals. I enjoyed every minute with my host family. We loved teaching each other about music, food, culture, style, and the things that are different between our homes, laughing and having a good time without always having to say the perfect words. And we didn't have them, we had Google Translate, which is just as fun. I will still communicate with my Japanese family and received a package from them last week. It included a report on Shoto's 3-home-run baseball game and a plastic snake that he used to prank his older sister. He is now pranking me from exactly 9,878 kilometers west, and that's just what little brothers do. Shoto will be eligible to apply for the exchange in 2027, and I hope we will be able to host him and take him to a Padres game. It's important to recognize Nicole White for her guidance, planning, and support. She was our international bonus mom and still keeps me on track while juggling her great work and special projects for Encinitas. And then, Ms. Cope, you provided us with such passion and encouragement for this exchange, and you're such a treasure. The world is so big. The values we share connect us, and our differences are important, especially when we take the time to understand them. I loved the Japanese culture of honor and respect, and there's so much that I have learned. The Amoxa Sister City Exchange made a monumental impact on how I view the world and collecting globally and who I am today. It has influenced my future goals and renewed my commitment and enthusiasm to civic youth leadership. I hope it is a program that will grow and continue for a long time. Thank you. Domo arigato gozaimasu.
Thank you. And I'd like to ask each of you, now that you're back here in the United States, to tell us a little bit about what life is like right now. Let us know what your school is. Be very brief. You're applying what you learned.
About life now back?
Yeah. Well, yeah. What are you doing? What grade are you in, and what school do you go to?
I go to SDA. I'm a junior this year. Courses are harder. I'm taking a lot of AP classes this year. Now I'm back involved with the theater group at my school. So I love telling my host families about the process of our theater group, as none of them were directly involved in theater. Are you in the Japanese program at SDA? Yes, I take Japanese at my high school. I'm in Japanese 5 right now, and next semester I'll be taking Japanese AP. It's been really helpful in communicating with my family.
Were you able to speak in Japanese with them?
Some, yes.
Yes.
For some more specific things, Google Translate was helpful.
Yes.
But yes.
It's a great program here at SDA.
Yes, very strong. My teacher cares a lot about it.
All right. Well, thank you for representing our city in Amoxa.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, for about a month, I found myself bowing to everybody. Every time I would have a conversation, or the other day I was meeting an author and I found myself going like that, and he called me out for it. Or before I walk into a classroom, I took off my shoes a couple times. So, I mean, I think my brain was kind of on like auto function, and there's so many things that I think looking back at it now that in implementing it in my life, like the things that I do, like taking off my shoes every day I walk into the household. And it's just, I talked about this earlier, but the respect, the amount of respect they had for every person around them, and just how happy they were. And just how every time you would walk into a room, everyone would smile. And it just, there's these studies that show that maybe they're not the happiness on these charts, but I cannot disagree more. Every person I met smiled, gave me a handshake. They were so passionate about me being there. And I just, every time I do activity, whether it's just going to a water polo game, getting into a classroom, approaching anything, I just look around at the people that are surrounding me, and I just know that I want to teach them that. I want to give them the experience that I got from Japan. And that it doesn't have to be 9,878 kilometers away, because it can start right here. And the amount of respect that we give to each other is so important. And I think I'm a captain for my water polo team. I'm leading a service group, and I think I couldn't have done that without going to Japan. And it's so important for the people and the kids that need that. So
And you're in
thank
the
you.
11th grade at Pacific Ridge?
I'm in 10th grade at Pacific Ridge School, which is in Carlsbad.
Very good. Thank you, Quade. I appreciate you representing the city.
I'm Tyler. I think that there are two things that I really did take away from the trip. One of them is a little bit more practical, and the other is a little bit more, I guess, metaphorical. The first thing is just the absolute resilience of their students. One of my host family's children, they are in, I think, 11th grade, same grade as us, and they live in another city completely alone for 5 out of the 7 days of the week just to pursue more education. They work so tirelessly, and it's so impressive to see. So that's kind of something I've been at least trying to emulate. But secondly is kind of just the knowledge that the world is bigger, as Quaid said earlier. Like, I have never traveled that far, and seeing that every single bit of the earth has so much to explore, and it's all so different, and it's all so like, you have to see it to believe it. It's encouraging, it's inspiring, it's very, very refreshing to see that there's more to the world than just what I've seen, and it's all very real.
And you're a student at what school?
SDA, I'm an 11th grader.
SDA, 11th grade. Very good. Thank you for representing the city in Amoxa.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yep. And Carolyn Cope leading, yes. You've been
You
involved in
said
this
my name, so now I'm here.
Yes, you've been involved in this program since
Since
the start.
1988, when it first started.
Yep,
We had lived in Japan, and I have this fondness for Japanese. And I called the city, and I said, do we have a sister city? Yes, it had just started. So Rick Shea and I are the original committee, pardon me. And what was so wonderful for me, and I really am appreciative that I was allowed to go and travel with them. I paid my own way, and it was well worth it. But we got to reunite with all of the mayor from the past, the new mayor. There was 2 new people, the superintendent and Mayor Baba. We need to get this program going again. And I think our group here has really got it started really well. But it's time for the council to do delegation exchange. I think it's time for us to invite the mayor and the powers that be in Amoxa to come here. We used to do firefighter exchanges, nursing exchanges, the superintendent exchanges, the education exchanges, art exchanges. So to me, and that's the message I gave to them when we reunited at a nice dinner party, is that this is the beginning of a new phase. We need to get this program kicked up again, and then you'll embrace it just as much as these lovely children.
Yes.
And Nicole was a fantastic delegate to
Excellent.
be with the students.
Well,
Thank you.
We thank you all, and I believe next summer will be an exchange with students from Amoxa coming here, so it would be appropriate for us to extend an invitation to the elected leaders of that city to join their students. Huh? Okay, thank you all very much. Next, we're going to get an update from the engineering department on capital improvement projects and traffic issues.
Thank you, Mayor Kranz, Deputy Mayor, council members, members of the public. I'm Jill Bankston. I'm the Director of Engineering for the City of Encinitas. With me tonight are Matt Widelsky, our Principal Engineer over Capital Projects, Abe Bandigan, our City Traffic Engineer, and we've got some friends with the Utilities Department as well. We've got the General Manager, Isam Haresh, and then we've got Dan Nutter, one of the engineers, Principal Engineer, I believe. And with that, I'll kick off the presentation. All right, so every year the City Council approves funding for particular capital projects in the budget. That list of projects is memorialized in the donut chart, which is on the right-hand side of this PowerPoint here. There are 43 specific projects in the donut chart for fiscal year 23-24. Of those, 39 were managed by the engineering department. And over the past year and a couple months, we completed 8 projects. We have 7 projects that are in construction, 8 more projects that are in design, and then the remaining 16 projects need additional funding to move forward to the next phase. So in addition to those 43 projects that were in the donut chart, 39 of those the engineering department managed. We also got some off-cycle projects, so some projects that were added throughout the year. We had 6 unanticipated drainage repair projects. We got 3 grants and added 3 new grant-funded projects. We got 1 donation for a park project, and then we had 5 other new projects, so a total of 15 projects that were added after the donut chart. And of those 15 projects, 6 are complete, 5 are in construction, 3 are in design, and 1 needs more funding to move forward. So of those projects, this is kind of a breakdown of where all of those projects are, the 39 plus the 15, 54 projects in total. We completed 14 of them, 13 are in construction, 10 are in design, and 17 need more funding. So in addition to these big capital projects, Abe will talk a little bit more about 11 mini traffic projects that we had. So then for the projects that were able to make it to construction or have funding to go to construction, where does the funding come from? So about 44% of those projects have some grant funding, 17% or 6 projects have some kind of other funding that can be mitigation fees or SB1 or gas tax. And then 39% of our projects were just general fund funded. And then over this past year and a couple months, we've sought 22 grant opportunities. So with that, I'm going to pass it along to Matt Widelsky to talk specifically about the the CIP division.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Can everybody hear me? Hopefully. Okay, good. My name is Matt Widelsky. I'm the principal engineer in charge of the CIP section, and wanted to get a little more into detail about some of the specific CIP projects. One thing to just explain here what we have, starting with our completed projects. We have the project. The ITF column you see is from the Integrated Task Force, the ranking number that they had. Other funds column means if it was receiving any grants. If there isn't anything in that column, then it was general fund, and then the fund amounts are listed there on the last column. So completed the 22-23 annual overlay. It is listed on the donut chart that we have. Very happy that got done. Pacific View Art Center, hopefully everybody had a good chance to maybe get to that opening. We were really happy to have that project complete. The Levenheim Trunk Sewer Phase 1A out there in Levenheim, a lot of those manholes needed to be rehabilitated. The Moonlight Beach and the Cottonwood Creek repairs were done together right down there by Moonlight Beach. And I think for some of you to remember, we luckily got that last culvert lined right before that big rainstorm in December. So we were happy to have that one complete. And then we did finish a sewer project there along B Street as well. As was mentioned, some of the storm drain projects that came in that were unexpected because of a lot of the rains and the sinkholes, the Eolus storm drain, Windsor sinkhole, which was just south of Santa Fe Drive. Loch Lomond was a sinkhole where the CMP had failed and we had to repair that pipe. Brookside Lane recently just got done about 2 weeks ago out there in Levenheim, a CMP pipe that had failed, and we did replace it with a RCP pipe. The Lake Drive West Canyon, again, this one was the second project we did where we put the Highline HDPE pipe in there to really prevent a lot of that sediment from eroding down. And then Caminito Graciela was a small little neighborhood drainage repair that had to be done. It was failing out there in Levenheim, and that one was completed as well. So as we move to projects that are under construction, hopefully a lot of people can see these. The Leucadia Streetscape obviously started at the end of last year, and it's been going on all along from Jupiter Street up to La Costa, and that should be going until 2026. The 23-24 paving contract has been awarded, and they should be breaking ground in about the next 2-3 weeks. So that should be coming along, the next round of those streets. Along with the streetscape, the North 101 drainage, we know we've added that money for the 60-inch pipe to be extended all the way from Jupiter to La Costa now. Santa Fe Drive West in front of San Diego Academy has been going on. We're getting close to wrapping that up, should be about another 2 months. And then the gate over at Wales Drive and Crest Drive, if you've been there, it has been installed. We have to finally get the power connected so that electricity gets operated. So we're finalizing that with SDG&E. And a couple more that we're really happy about. The sidewalk to Solana Beach from the State Beach Park, that is in construction, should be starting about 3 weeks from now. The Beacons Beach parking lot shift, where the parking lot gets adjusted landward so that the parking lot is safer along from the bluff failure plane, that should be starting, we want to say, in about a month. And then along Rancho Santa Fe Road, there is a project we have to install fencing along Rancho Santa Fe Road with the grant we got from the park department. So we got a lot of stuff going on here in the city. Starting in the next 3 to 6 months, yes, the 24-25 annual pavement, we're happy to keep the pavement projects going. Santa Fe Drive East has been awarded, and that we expect to have started by the end of fall, maybe into winter of 2024. Glen Park over in Cardiff, there's been identified there are some ADA improvements that have to be done. That project is very close to finalizing permitting and design, and then it will be going out to construction there for the parking lot and some of the sidewalks over there. The Scott Valley Park was a donation the city received, so that's going to refurbish some playground equipment, as you can see in the picture there in the bottom. Excited about that. Cardiff Sports Park, we are set to go, but we need to wait until November because we need to have those fields clear so that replacing the lights isn't going to interfere with the softball and the baseball and everything out there. And then the intersection at El Camino Real and Rancho Santa Fe Road, that should be coming in about the spring. We're working on that right now. The CIP section has projects still in design as well. The Leucadia at-grade crossings, we are about at 30%, and that will be submitted to the CPUC in November. And so then there will be the 8 to 12 month waiting time, but we're excited about getting that. We know the community is really anxious for that project. La Costa Avenue Ped Path, we are in design on that. We had to connect up the little private development, but this one runs from Vulcan Avenue all the way to about Interstate 5. So in about the 90% level right now. The Cityride Quiet Zone, in October, November, we expect to get our submittals for that project, and I know that's a very popular project in the city. So once that comes in, we're looking for some outreach, but design would be starting in 2025. And then at Paul Leckie Elementary School, we know right now there's an existing stairway to get up to Orpheus Park. It's not easy. It's not always user accessible, so we're pursuing projects to look at a pathway to get students and pedestrians and bicyclists to and from. And last one we got from the park department was Grandview Stairs. Those stairs need to be refurbished, so we are about 50% through the design and need to get that into construction. Oh, I apologize. And Lake Drive, the complete project, not the emergency project, that is around 90% now, and we are continuing to design that to get it to finalizing the design and the permitting phase. Projects that we have that need funding, the Vulcan Avenue Ped Path, obviously from Leucadia Boulevard up to La Costa. We need design money, we need construction money. Leucadia Streetscape A and B, both routed together by the ITF there. We have the design, need the construction money. The Railroad Cross Connect, this was the study that identified multiple crossings all throughout the city. So it's a large project. It has multiple projects in there. So prioritizing needs to be done to see which one would need to be pursued. The North 101 Basal to Jupiter, this would be extending our drainage pipe even further south from Jupiter, which is funded already. The Leucadia Hygeia Roundabout project is designed and it is ready. We are looking for funding. We always try to keep this looking for funding. The Birmingham Drive goes from I-5 down to San Alejo Avenue. Has been designed, waiting for construction money. The Jason Street Drainage Project, it was a small project to try install a pipe underneath the railroad tracks. Because we've started doing the streetscape and the drainage work, this has kind of been put toward the back burner a little bit, but we still have it. It is a project that is designed and we need construction funding. And then the Leucadia wastewater Vulcan improvements, that would be going along with the Q3 report. We need to get design and construction funding for those projects. Little bit of continuing, our undercrossing at Verdi for the railroad, that is designed and has been permitted. We need construction funding. For the South 101 PED crossing at the border, this is not the sidewalk. This is a project to try put a crossing across the 101 there. So it is separate. Sometimes they tried to tie them together, but it is a separate project, and we are talking with the city of Solana Beach always about this. The Swami's Beach staircase access is a project that needs funding. Along Leucadia Boulevard, along Interstate 5, the railings are in a little bit of disrepair, and they've been identified that they need some maintenance work done. So we have it identified. We need to identify design and construction money. Trail 82 is the trail along Rancho Santa Fe Road from Lone Jack South to Encinitas Boulevard. Project's about 90% designed, but it does not have any identified construction funding. The San Alejo Bridge rehabilitation, Caltrans did select this bridge to be funded in 25-26, so the rehabilitation can start next year. And we verified that this week, that project is on track, ready to go. And lastly, the La Costa Improvements Project. This was the project from 2011 where Carlsbad was going to do half, Encinitas was going to do half. We do not have design and construction funding anymore on this project. So lastly, the grants. As we've said, grants are a big thing that a lot of our department does. Successful ones we got, the Santa Fe from State Senator Blakespear, we got $3 million for that. We also received $850,000 for the Leucadia Hygeia Roundabout. Unfortunately, that is not enough to complete the construction. Got that from Congressman Levin. And then the San Alejo Bridge rehabilitation, as we said, that was picked up for the Highway Bridge Program from Caltrans. So next year, 25 into 26 is when that should begin the environmental studies and the design. Hold on a second. Okay. Grant applications that we are still waiting for, the drainage improvements on North 101 with Congressman Levin, and then where we partner with the sustainability group, the EV charging stations, we are pursuing a grant. Hopefully, we're going to try to get $1 million. Being prepared right now, the annual pavement rehabilitation with the rubberized, recyclized asphalt, that should be coming in about 2-3 weeks here to council to get approval to pursue that grant. And the citywide quiet zone, we just came to get authorization from the Railroad Elimination Crossing Grant. That should be submitted here in the next week. And the one we don't like to report on, but we do apply for grants and we don't always get selected. So Vulcan Avenue, La Costa Ped Path, we were not successful. We haven't been too successful on Safe Streets for All, SS4A, for a lot of the projects. It's just been the way it's been going. We had the Climate Resilient Grant we pursued for Lake Drive and Jason Street, and we were not successful. The storm drain replacement from Cal OES, we were not successful as we tried for that. Streetscape Segment A, we applied for a RAISE grant, and it did not come out successful. With North 101 drainage, we were not successful on Senator Padilla, Butler, and as well as with Feinstein on the quiet zone, but we keep trying. And then we know we just found out 4 days ago we were not successful on Leucadia Hygeia Boulevard Roundabout for the Safe Streets for All grant project. So that's what the capital improvement program has been doing this last year, and so I'll turn it over to Abe, the traffic engineer.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members, members of the public. Abe Bandigan, City Traffic Engineer. Similar to CIP, I'll cover traffic division projects and studies last year. These are a few of the completed projects, capital projects that we had last year. All three major projects were grant funded by HSIP Highway Safety Improvement Program. The El Camino Real Z crossing that was completed north of Encinitas Boulevard, fully operational. We were able to convert about 80% of all of the city streetlights to high efficiency LEDs the past year using state funds. All were converted to new LEDs. Also, we were able to complete cycle track phase 2 north of Chesterfield, between Chesterfield and Swami's, with a two-way cycle track and also bike lanes in each direction. We also have several projects on the way. We have several pedestrian improvements at different intersections. We have two in Ranch Santa Fe area. We have one at B and 3rd intersection, adding bulb outs, new crosswalks. And we also have a couple at Parkdale Lane. So these are also grant funded. Construction is underway. Well, for this one, the design is underway. Our lead pedestrian interval, we were able to secure $1.2 million from Caltrans, upgrading all of our traffic signal systems and all of our crosswalks and push buttons and associated signing and striping needed. The lead pedestrian interval, for those who might not know about it, is where the pedestrian gets 3 to 7 seconds of advanced ped walk time before the vehicles get their green time. So the pedestrian would be able to occupy the crosswalk before the vehicles enter the intersection, to kind of give them the right of way of having occupied the crosswalk. Our bike emergency improvement citywide is underway. Construction already started. We're working on different fronts on that, doing concrete work. Construction of the roundabout already started at Quail Gardens at the Botanic Garden entrance. Quail Garden and Saxony is similar. These two projects are merged together in a single bid to benefit from economy of scale. Our citywide signal improvements are, it's at its latest stages, like 90% plus done. Four of our signals will receive new equipment with receiving protected permissive signal timing, similar to the entrance to the city hall, with a flashing yellow arrow for the left turn, where the left turns where they didn't have a protected turn signal will now have protected left turns. Intersections being Encinitas and Vulcan intersection, Vulcan and Lucadia intersection, Quail Gardens at Lucadia, and the Santa Fe Hospital signal. These four will be getting, the new signal heads are installed, they're just turned off. They will be turned on hopefully this month. And also the study that was reviewed by council recently, the safety and mobility improvements in the vicinity of housing element site, that project was only funded for 30% design. There were a lot of mini projects, a few of them. They're called mini because of the funding associated with them, but the amount of benefit that came from many of these is comparable to many of our major projects. The Lazy Acre median improvements, the adjustment that was done to allow the left turners into Lazy Acres have a longer queuing area, the pit crossing that was done east side of the freeway on Birmingham, the Sunset Drive intersection with Orpheus modification, the realigning of that intersection, the business district 25 mile per hour in downtown, the AB 43 implementation citywide. We updated our ATMP Encinitas traffic management program. Stop signs were installed at various locations with the direction of council and approval of council. We created a new queuing lane at Paul Ecke Central northbound on Vulcan, which is very nicely used. We had realigned Vulcan walkway. We created an unofficial walkway on Vulcan north of Lucadia Boulevard by realigning our formerly perpendicular and diagonal parking to a parallel parking. Encinitas Boulevard was restriped east of I-5 by Calumac to allow for better operation of the intersections over there and better flow and safer flow for bicyclists. And also we implemented a safe routes to school in coordination with our school districts and our schools' principals. We had multiple grants that we used last year that I already mentioned. The projects are underway with those. We have one new one that was successful last year. Construction on that one hasn't started yet. Citywide pedestrian improvements. It's about $550,000 that we haven't started construction. We haven't tapped into that money yet. And we have 4 grants on the way, which council reviewed and directed us to apply last month. We have a protected intersection grant for about $500,000 at Santa Fe and ECR. We already started the design process, evaluation, starting preliminary stage of design. If this money comes to fruition, then we can set aside the money that council provided for this intersection for a different project. Encinitas Boulevard separated bike lane. This is for Encinitas Boulevard between I-5 and Ballure, basically creating a protected area for our bicyclists. We have a South 101 pet crossing at Solana Beach border. This one is a $400,000 grant. We in coordination with the Solana Beach engineering team. We submitted this application. And then the South 101 road diet and pet path. This is a $1.9 million grant that, if successful, we discussed this, potential road diet and addition of a new 2-way or 1-way cycle track that can create additional bike lane adjacent to the protected facility for us if successful. With that, I'll pass it to Isam or Mehta.
All right, good evening. My name is Dan Nutter, and I'm a senior engineer with the Utilities Department. Before we get started with our wastewater CIP update, I did want to let you guys know that this is strictly wastewater within the Utilities Department, and next month at the San Diego Water District Board meeting, you'll be hearing about the wastewater CIP, or excuse me, the water CIP update. So this is only wastewater. So the wastewater division is fairly new. We're about 2 years old. So within those last 2 years, we've been doing a lot of really great work. We have a number of projects that are in the design and planning phase and also starting construction. I'll start with the Cottonwood Creek Sewer Realignment Project. So we'll be realigning about 500 linear feet of 10-inch sewer main out of the Cottonwood Creek sewer, or Cottonwood Creek bed, basically, realigning that out for very large environmental advantages. And we're anticipating that we're going to start construction there roughly spring of next year. We have the Olivenheim Trunk Sewer Manhole Rehabilitation Phase 1B project. We just kicked that off about a month ago. We'll be rehabilitating about 20 manholes and removing a siphon that we have within our trunk sewer. So that is a very important project because that is located in an area where we have a significant amount of infiltration and inflow in our manholes, so that will reduce the I&I that we've got. We're also, for the OTS system, which is the Olivenheim Trunk Sewer System, we're doing an alternatives report for a future upsizing project. So wanted to bring that to your attention again. You're going to hear a little bit more about OTS or the Olivenheim Trunk Sewer over the next year plus. So a couple more projects in planning. We have the FY26 Annual Sewer Rehabilitation Project. That is going to, the design of that project is going to kick off in about a month or two. And we're anticipating rehabbing about 400 feet of sewer main there. 4,000 feet of sewer main, thank you. And then finally, we are currently underway with our sewer pipeline condition assessment. So this is an assessment of our current condition of our sewer main, and we are developing a 10-year CIP prioritization plan out of this. Part of our condition assessment is we are looking at every single sewer main within the city. So city staff has personally inspected 175,000 feet of pipeline. So that is a huge undertaking, and it gives us really, really good condition data. So all sewer mains, again, as I mentioned, all sewer mains are included in this, and we're anticipating having this report completed early 2025. And then the two projects that we have in construction, the first one, this is actually hopefully going to start construction in about a month. This is the FY24 Annual Sewer Rehabilitation Project. We're going to rehabilitate 4 miles of main and 2 manholes, and the construction cost of this project is roughly $1.83 million. And then the second project here is the Moonlight Beach Pump Station Improvements Project. This project's actually administered by the San Alejo JPA, but it is a City of City of Encinitas pump station that we own. The JPA operates and maintains the pump station. So with that, that concludes the wastewater CIP updates.
Councilmember Leaders, did you have a question?
Yeah, I think back on the engineering, on the grants, I thought it's great we're getting all these grants, love it. And I thought it was interesting seeing the ratio of successful to non-successful. And I know in a lot of grants, after the results come out, there's usually some feedback. And I'm curious, what kind of feedback on the ones we didn't get were you getting that maybe we could do differently in the future to help? Was there a general trend or any comments you'd like to make on why we didn't get grants?
We see a lot of, we're not hitting the mark for the disadvantaged communities, so that's one piece of feedback. For the Safe Streets for All, they wanted us to have a Vision Zero plan, and we kind of had the start of a Vision Zero plan, but it wasn't finalized yet. But now that we're kind of wrapping up those efforts, we feel like that will tick some more boxes for us and perhaps will be more successful in the future. And that's kind of a general sense of the feedback that we've gotten.
Thank you.
Councilmember Lyons?
I just wanted to mention a couple things and maybe get your concurrence. One of the things that we've been the beneficiary of in the past is a lot of our regional partners, statewide partners, stepping forward and partnering with us on improvements, important improvements. A lot of the San Alejo Lagoon, a lot of the rail trail, and a lot of the mitigation that we've experienced here in our city has been because of our partnerships with Caltrans, Sandag, and NCTD. So even those are the ones I'm speaking of are in the past, I wanted to highlight today that a lot of people ask me about sand on our beaches. And that also fits in that category. And even though it's within our city jurisdiction, we do benefit from a lot of other money that comes into our city to support what we have built as far as our relationships with our partners. So the sand on our beaches is kind of in the same category, but not on your list today because it's not under our oversight. But however, we are a key partner in making sure it happens. And so we have the Corps of Engineers, and we do also have Sandag acting on our behalf as far as adding sand to our beach, restoring sand to our beaches over time. So I just wanted, you're nodding, and so you're in agreement. I just wanted to kind of make that as kind of a more comprehensive look at what we're doing in our community. Thank you.
On the San Alejo Bridge rehabilitation, that is a bottleneck for bike and peds. Is the rehabilitation going to include an area for bikes and peds?
That's our plan. That will be in our request, and we're going to work with Caltrans and hope that they approve it. Usually their rule is if you have like ped paths or bike lanes on either side of it, then it makes sense to add it. So we think we're in good standing there to get that approved.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate the presentation. You guys are doing a lot of work, and we can tell because we're having to be somewhat inconvenienced as we travel about town. But that does require a few broken eggs to make an omelet, and so I'm looking forward to eating the omelet. So thank you very much. We're going to, we have two other presentations, but I just learned that there are 17 public speakers tonight for oral communication. And so I think I'm going to, between these presentations, before we hear from the Sheriff's Department and the Fire Department, we're going to hear 5 oral communications, and then the balance of the oral communication will be at the end of the meeting. So the one thing I do see, Suzanne, here, and I got an email from you today, and I see a lot of residents of the Levenhain. Is there some commonality in what it is that you're speaking to? Yes. I'm not surprised. And so maybe a way to address the lengthy list of oral communication would be for us to acknowledge that this is an issue that a lot of people have an interest in, but hear from only 1 or 2 of you. So I also did learn that there are some complications with this particular maintenance of the street. So I think that most of you, I think, are aware of what the complication is. It has to do with the city will accept maintenance. It is a city public street, but maintenance has not been assumed by the city because of the fact that it needs to be brought up to a public street standard before we can do that. So that is a problem with the situation and the city assuming maintenance. So with that, let's start with the first 5 oral communications.
Okay, call you 3 at a time. As the mayor said, there'll be 5 of you initially. You have 3 minutes, and this is to discuss items that are not listed on the agenda. Andre Gray, Joe Schwab, followed by Jesse Hanwitt, then Lisa Provenzano, and Scott Campbell.
Okay, good evening. I'm Andre Gray. I'm the superintendent for Encinitas Union School District. I first want to thank you for your partnership in everything related to safety. Obviously, we've done some major changes with adding the crossing guards that you supported, the El Portal underpass, our bike safety project, which you've been an amazing partner with, and traffic calming. So thank you so much for that. Tonight, I just wanted to briefly give you an update about facilities in our school district because it's an important topic that I've brought up at different times in governmental affairs and safe routes to schools. We are committed to ensuring a safe and secure, up-to-date facilities for our children. And to this end, we've spent the last year revising our facilities plan with parents, site teams, and architects to get a true assessment of the infrastructure of our schools. You may not know, but Capri Elementary is 65 years old, and Paul-Lecky Central is about to celebrate its 100th birthday. And having aging facilities means we have a lot of projects. After the thorough review of our facilities, we have created a list of priorities. I'll just name a few, but there are priorities at all 9 of our sites. We have campuses that we need to replace roofs. We have leaky plumbing. For example, Paul-Lecky Central, we have to redo the entire plumbing of the entire school. We have sewage needs and drainage needs. We need to update our HVAC systems and our security systems. We want to remove all of the portable classrooms that are still on our campuses and have permanent structures. We want to make sure that we address undersized classrooms in our 3 older sites at Paul-Lecky Central, Ocean Knoll, and Capri have major needs. We need to update restrooms and improve outdoor learning spaces, add shade. We want to replace our older playground structures and make sure that we have rubberized surfaces. Many of our structures now have wood chips, which are not accessible to our students with mobility issues and cause safety concerns. We need a whole rebuild of our Flora Vista preschool, which is our special education preschool, and we want to expand our site kitchen or central kitchen. Before COVID, we did about 300,000 meals per year, and this last year we did 600,000 meals, so we have major needs to be able to adjust that. Obviously, our district resources cannot simply adequately address these needs. So in May, our school board unanimously voted to put a general obligation bond on the ballot. This ballot measure would cost taxpayers $19 per 100,000 of assessed value, not market value. And if approved, the bond measure will provide $158 million for crucial facilities upgrades. This money can only be used for facilities and has oversight and transparency built in. Finally, it's important to note that after extensive review process, the Taxpayers Association did support this. Please reach out if you have any questions. This was just general information for you, and we really appreciate all you do in your partnership.
Thank you.
Hello again. I'm Joe Schwab, and I'm here to address the quiet zone issue. We got into that a little bit last week, and one of the aims of this is to add health, safety, and well-being to the priority objective list of this. And I think I presented some information that directly deals with the health and safety of the citizenry that live close to the blast zone. All right, and I presented this article that shows there's a 1.24 hazard risk ratio, or risk to the citizens that are exposed to that sort of thing. This is a new article that came out at the beginning of the year, but again, just reiterates what's going on in terms of the impact of environmental noise, traffic noise on the health, et cetera, of the communities exposed to the blast zone. Touched on this briefly, and it is through sleep disruption It is a risk hazard that can be adjusted and modified to impact the citizenry of the Encinitas folks. This is just a cartoon that basically shows that the types of noise levels that we are exposed to are, certainly where I live, I get easily a 70 to 75 decibel blast from the trains. I live 500 feet east, but it just goes on to show that these risk factors do impact the health of the individuals that live close to that, and these are the mechanistic pathways. So what I want to do is hopefully keep this on the front burner for the city, and it appears from the engineering report that that is happening. And moving forward, I hope that by adding health, well-being, and safety of the citizens, that will perhaps provide a different avenue for funding, one that I'm not sure exactly has been addressed through the mechanisms. And one of the things to consider is the World Health Organization has looked at noise as a form of pollution, and to look at these trains going up and down, which are about 70 plus vehicles a day, spewing out pollution in the form of noise, and we're all exposed to that. One other thing that just occurred to me, and it was brought up, is about the train noise and the impact it might have on two schools. The Cardiff Elementary School is obviously in the quiet zone, but the Paul Ecke Elementary School is right on the edge of where that blast zone begins. And it would be interesting and probably pretty easy just to look if there's a difference in the school in terms of health, test scores, sick days, and so forth. And that might serve as another course of funding. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. And I got your email too, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Good evening, council members and Mayor Kranz. My name is Jessie Hanwitt, and it's nice to see you all again. I'm here just to give you a short update on the progress of Village Encinitas. And as you may remember, Village Encinitas is part of a nationwide network of villages. There are over 300 of them now in the country, over 50 in the state of California. And the villages are created to assist older adults to age in place. And they use volunteers to provide innovative and practical solutions that meet the needs of our members. We offer transportation, technology help, home maintenance, and most importantly, social connections. We've all heard about the studies that have shown that loneliness and social isolation are associated with higher risks for health problems such as heart disease, depression, and cognitive decline. And services such as a friendly visit and regular phone calls can help to reconnect people to their community, and Village Encinitas can do that. We began signing up members in July, and as of today, we have 42 member volunteers at our pilot project at High Country Villas. We're finding that every week we're adding 2 or 3 more people, and members are starting to ask for services like friendly visits, tech help, home maintenance, and our volunteers are responding to them. Because we feel that the infrastructure for a community of support and care is in place at High Country Villas, we've made plans to move Village Encinitas into the city. And we've scheduled an informational meeting for September 30th at the Senior Center. And during that event, we'll begin the work of informing older adults in Encinitas about the benefits of being a part of a village, and that offers connections, meaningful opportunities, and joy. We envision that our Village Encinitas will keep growing and keep the citizens of Encinitas healthier and at home while we all navigate the transitions of aging together. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that those people that are participating in Village Encinitas are also aware of the AARP Age Friendly Network. And they're hoping to be part of this important endeavor and are ready to work should Encinitas become a part of this necessary network. We all know that our population is rapidly aging, and we're looking forward to being part of the hands-on and totally locally determined plans for our city. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members, deputy mayor, and Mr. Mayor. We have concerns about the housing developments on Quail Gardens Drive and the effects not only on Quail Gardens Drive but the surrounding areas. What is the final number the state requires of low-income and very low-income housing in Encinitas? What's the number as of today? When are we required to meet this number? What is the deadline? And will the number increase in the future? Where can we find out exactly what incentives and our allowances were given and will be given to developers along Quail Gardens Drive? It will give us a better picture of those variables and what is costing us directly. Among the most common incentives or allowances are increased density, zoning variances, reduction in site development standards, modification of architectural design requirements, and reduction in parking requirements. And we can see how that last one is affecting the situation already. With Fox Point, that will only get worse with each new development. Paseo de las Flores is a city-owned street. It is not a solution for the overflow at the top of the curve of Paseo de las Flores is a sign that says private streets, no parking for Fox Point Farms. Violators will be towed. Between self-parking and valet parking, which is offered Saturday and Sunday from 4 to 7 p.m., if you're going to Haven, the restaurant, is not adequate. There's no charge if you're going to the restaurant, but if you're not, the charge, I was told today, is $10 to $15 for everyone else if there are no more parking spots in the lot. The golf course has already spoken to Fox Point. I spoke with them today in person, and they let me know that under no circumstances can anyone from Fox Point park there. They had a problem with employees parking there. Even though they have gates, they will place a guard at the gate when Fox Point is having a function. When Fox Point, Encinitas Ranch Golf Course, and Botanic Gardens have events at the same time, most often during the holidays, that will be a show for the local news. Less common incentives for these developments include waivers. They can do modifications on the affordable housing units. They have concessions on size, cost of finishes, and tax relief abatement and direct public subsidy. We want to know about that. And then where are all these kids going to go to school? Presently, we know Capri's under enrolled, but we have elementary schools that have 32 and 33 kids in a class, and the state rule is 30. Are there plans for someone building a school or making the modification she said?
Thank you.
Back up. Okay, good evening, Council. My name is Scott Campbell, and I'm today representing Encinitas Citizen Review Panel. And we have another exciting presentation. But first, it wasn't that long ago that I talked about the MWD raising their rates, was it? You had a tough job, Ms. Blackwell. I feel bad for you. And Tony, Mayor, I applaud your efforts at efficiency at running good meetings. That's a big effort across the board. I'm seeing that in all the commissions. The meeting's taking too long, costs staff, and it's an expense. So let's get going here. Did we get the wrong show? We have the wrong show. Okay. So I collected data. I showed you a bunch of data last week about property taxes and income and revenues. And I did a little bit of different math. I divided expenses, public works versus expenses, public safety versus expenses, and the sum of those. We're pretty good on public safety. We're right in the middle of the road. I mean, we want to be in the middle of the road. We want to be the best. We don't want to be the worst. We just want to be average. That's okay. We spend money on our sheriffs and our fire department. Now, when I got to the public works and I divided it by our total expenses, I was horrified. We are absolute last out of all those lists of cities. Cities of the same size, coastal cities. We are the last by far, significantly last. What are we spending all of our money in? It's a really good question. Vanity projects, state mandates, unexpected drainage costs. Oh, that's okay. The Pollocky Trail, that's another cost. Why are we doing this if we're the last on spending on public works? Now, when we added safety plus public works together, there's only one city that's worse than us, Brentwood. A very rich city, but they're the only city that actually spends less than us as a percentage of our expenses. We don't need more money. We need a reallocation of money is what we really need. That's what it's all about. Measure K is just a Band-Aid on poor expenses. Now, I had a different slide, and I do have an ask, and it's about process efficiency. My ask is that we add a performance evaluation plan to projects. And what that is it's a measurable success metrics and timelines so we can do a review of, say, service calls, efficacy, and we can evaluate things like unintended consequences. This is really important. We've been doing so many projects, but you never really go back and see, did they work? I'm sorry out of time, and I wish I had my show. I'll send it to you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Mayor, that was the first 5. Did you want to continue? or
Okay,
no?
can I take Suzanne? Or who? Okay.
They have a group of 4.
What's that?
They have a group of 4.
At 12 minutes?
No. We're only 30 seconds.
Okay, come on up, group of
So
4.
we'll start with Denny Neville, then Dan Klausenstock, then Suzanne Klausenstock, then Richard Hauk.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and esteemed members of the council. Suzanne, do we have a slide? I'll go ahead and start. We are here representing a neighborhood of 48 properties near the meeting hall in Levenheim. In particular are the neighbors that access Cole Ranch Road south of 7th Street, some of whom are here tonight. If you're here tonight for Cole Ranch Road, would you raise your hand, please? Quite a number of them, and that's not all. We have some major concerns, though, over the extremely poor condition of the road and the safety of those who travel upon it. You can see in the first slide, we have major concerns, extremely poor condition of the road and safety of those who travel upon it. There are countless pedestrians, cyclists, horses, and vehicles accessing Cole Ranch Road. Some are getting to their home or going to work, while some walk daily to enjoy the views of the horse ranches and the Escondido Creek Valley. Occasionally, we have an unintended pedestrian from the memory care facility that happens to travel down the street. You can stop or continue, okay. And you can see that traveling on this street creates a serious safety risk for all. The entire street surface has deteriorated into a dangerous network of dips, cracks, and deep potholes. Water-filled potholes resulting from irrigation runoff or rain are even more dangerous since it is impossible to judge the breadth and depth of the holes. Unsuspecting vehicles and bicyclists swerve away at the last minute to avoid these road hazards. And unfortunately, we recently had a child injured in an episode with one of the potholes and ended up in the hospital. We also have members of the community that have had to pay damage out of their own pocket to repair their vehicles suffered, whether it be for alignments or wheel damage. Cars and trucks driving down the street slowly weave left and right to avoid the worst of the potholes and crevasses. As a result, much of the street functions as a single lane, as one driver backs up to allow the other to pass on the good side of the road. In addition to the residential traffic, we have construction trucks, trash trucks, hay deliveries, and the ever-present Amazon and other delivery trucks. Hence, safely navigating this road becomes even more challenging. Thank you. Susan?
Dan, are you next?
City Council and Mayor, I can make this in about 20 seconds. I think after the photos you saw there, I probably don't need to convince you of the condition of the road, but that's what this is about. So to continue on the topic of the road, we understand the Cole Ranch is just constructed of asphalt over native soil. Over the past 2 decades, the repairs were done on Cole Ranch Road, but now they've been deteriorated. In fact, the entire street from 7th Street all the way down to 5th is just a crisscross of uneven patchwork from different utilities, such as water, sewer, cable, and gas. Both new installations and the repairs to existing underground systems have caused a lot of what's happened to the road here. The repairs were made using methods that just don't hold up to traffic more than a couple years, and really are frankly, this road is substandard. Over the past decades, whenever a part of the road became problematic with some of these large potholes or some of the ruts, the Encinitas Public Works would perform repairs for the road. And then the past few years, we found out that the Public Works was going to stop responding to our requests. So the last thing is just about getting funds for the roads. I've learned a lot tonight about some of the funds you guys get. We see the funds come from some grants, some of your funds, gas tax. The other things I can think of, just all the property taxes, I suppose you get part of that. Construction permits, utility hookups. But also the utilities there pay a franchise fee, I assume. So, all those sources I would think could help to, get some kind of action on this road. So I'll turn that over to Suzanne. She's got more
Thank you.
stuff to talk about.
Hello, I'm Suzanne Klausenstock. I want to add a few other points regarding the road. About 10 years ago, traffic on Cole Ranch Road increased. This was caused by the city approving a lot split of a residence from the remaining 12-acre ranch on 7th Street. As seen in the slide, the entry shifted from 7th Street to a new entrance on 5th Street. This rerouted traffic down Cole Ranch Road. It's important to note that none of us were given the required notification of the new division of that property, or that the only access would be relocated to 5th Street. Only the immediate properties around the residents of 7th were given that notification. It was a huge oversight that has affected our entire neighborhood. The already fragile road is now regularly traversed by large commercial trucks moving hay, horses, feed, manure, etc. from 3 separate horse properties, in addition to their supporting personnel, trainers, grooms, veterinarians, farriers, and their clients. Research should have determined that asphalt on soil was never designed to withstand this kind of heavy traffic, and should have contemplated solutions before allowing these changes. In doing our recent research for these requests, the city has claimed that the incorporation of Encinitas in 1986, that our roads were documented as publicly owned, privately maintained. We have not seen this designation. How is this disclosed to the residents upon purchasing our homes? It does not appear in a majority of our title reports. So without legal notification, we shouldn't have to accept the financial burden for maintaining city-owned roads or accept the liability of accidents that may occur on them, as city staff has mentioned in the past. It may be that our street's historical status was an oversight dating back to incorporation, when the founding city council had too much on their plates, postponing the process of accepting roads like ours with the assumption that this would be addressed at a later date. This is that later date. For many years, several smaller groups have tried to get our roads fixed, and not just a patch here or there at our own expense. There were too many hurdles and concessions to bear, and with 48 properties, no one was ever able to agree on how to proceed. Next slide. The city told us that sidewalks and street lights would be required if they were to take over maintenance of our road, which scared residents into inaction. But we know there are exceptions to the rule. For example, take Crest, no sidewalks, no street lights. We need your help. How can we go forward to address this urgent safety matter? We hope to hear back from you soon on this very urgent issue. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and City Clerk. My name is Richard Houck. I'm a 70-year resident of Encinitas, a 47-year resident of Levenhain. I'd like to emphasize just 3 points that were brought up in the main presentation by Denny and Suzanne, and that was assumption of existing roadways, talking about the assumption based on what the requirements would be, and then certainly talking about the conversion to commercial use of ranch land. And those are the 3 items I wanted to talk about just briefly. So first of all, I'd like to mention that back in the 80s, I was a home developer, and I did it. I'm the one that put that road in 1976. So that was then, it was 2 inches of asphalt. That was the county requirement over native. It never was designed for a base level of heavy traffic or anything of that nature. I was also on the incorporation committee, and I'm going to talk about the assumption of existing roadways. On the incorporation committee, I was appointed to the committee by Matt Riley of the Encinitas Fire Department at the time, and also on the subsequent committee to include the 800-plus acres of the Eckie Ranch and ultimately Encinitas Golf Course into the city 10 years later. Now, for those of you that remember, the incorporation committee was comprised of some very divergent members representing the diverse communities of Encinitas, Leucadia, Cardiff by the Sea, and Levenhain. And at the time, we had tried to pass incorporation prior to this 3 different times, and it all failed. LAFCO at the time was encouraging and working with communities to incorporate. Solana Beach did. A lot of people incorporated around the same time we did. One of the sensitive discussion points was how to blend all communities within one city standard. And due to the rural nature of Levenhain, a critical item was the issue of assumption of roadways. Now, part of the problem we were facing is that LAFCO, there was a deadline to incorporate, and we felt that if we didn't do it then, so the road issue was brought up. There was a lot of discussions about that, and it was maintained the city would address the assumption after incorporation. And as Suzanne indicated, they did not. And the second thing is the commercial conversion. My wife and I own that piece, or did own that piece where the new roadway is. It was put in with dirt. It's covered by dust, and it was converted commercial. We were never notified. So thank you very much for your attention.
So,
Appreciate your
Rich,
time.
it sounds to me like your 50-year warranty, you probably ought to rebuild that road.
I have that in writing, by the way, so
Well, I would tell you, I'm happy to meet with you to talk about, what you're faced with and kind of give you the city side and try and work through what we can do to come up with a solution. I'm certainly not promising anything, but Jen would be able to schedule something, so happy to do that. Councilmember Ehlers?
Yeah, I was going to ask, since we can't respond and talk about it right now, we can't because it wasn't publicly noticed, but can we agendize this at a future meeting? And things I'd like to understand is a little more, give Richard maybe a little more time on the history of the other roads that were very similar. They were, what are they? I remember them called at the time publicly owned, privately maintained.
Yes.
And I remember also, but I don't remember the particulars, there have been quite a few over the years, over the last 20, 30 years, where the city has gradually taken them on.
That's correct.
And so what I'd like to do is have a factual meeting where we could get together, see the history of the 7 or 10 roads, I can't recall the exact number, what happened to them, and is it time now for Cole Ranch? The other thing I would point out is that's only a small portion of Cole Ranch, because the block immediately behind the meeting hall all the
That's
way
correct.
down to the next street is even worse,
That's
believe it or
correct.
not, other than it gets filled in with sand. Well, okay, it's as bad. I'm sorry.
All right.
It's
All right. So,
my whole point is it's more than just that one section.
Councilmember Ehlers? So I would suggest that what we could do is, you and I can bring a council member initiated item. We'll gather the information that we need. We'll have a meeting. We'll put together a little report. We'll put it on an agenda, and then you can bring the 17 people back or 28 people or whatever.
Well,
It'll
so-
be at the end of the meeting, not at the beginning of the meeting. So I appreciate y'all being here. I appreciate the email with the pictures and
Yeah.
your history. You know the history, so.
Well, but that's my problem. I actually would like staff time on this one, enough to figure out the history, because there's a lot of archive to look through. So that's why I would prefer it to be a regular staff
We'll
agenda
work.
item.
How about let's talk about a council member initiated item, which is
Okay.
the right way to do it. And then if it gets into the need for more staff time, we'll take that up at the council member initiated item. And
Okay.
we may not resolve it with the council member initiated item, but we will at least be able to, as a council, direct staff to bring us more information or whatever.
That would be outstanding. And just know this group has done a lot of research, so we are aware of some of the
Right. So-
constraints.
And I would
but
like
we
for
have
you
some
to-
ideas for
I'd
that.
love
so-
for you to bring all the information you've gathered to the meeting that we have.
Absolutely. Thank you
Okay.
very much. Thank you for your time.
Very good. Thank you.
Mayor, there was one more person that wanted to speak on Coal Ranch Road. Did you want to hear from that speaker now, or
Who is that?
Sandra?
I was going to talk about, they did an outstanding.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Oh, wait a minute. I don't think you need me. What I was going to share with you is what each of the residents.
Get up to the microphone.
Thank you, I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
Great presentation.
Did you fill out a slip?
I'd like to, no, I didn't, but I just wanted, may I say one thing? Is that all right, or no?
Sure.
Okay, hi, I'm Francesca Fields, and I wanted to say that I had to get a new tire because I went into a thing, and it's the semi-trucks. They said the semi-trucks, because the city allowed that horse facility.
Okay, and if you could go fill out a speaker slip, that would be helpful, because you spoke tonight, so we want to have you in the minutes. Okay. Very good. So let's have the sheriff make his presentation, and then the fire department will make their presentation, and then instead of at the end of the meeting for the rest of the oral communication, we'll have it after the presentations. That was my goal. That was. Captain Watts, are you ready to present? Thank you, sir.
I am, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council, City staff, and members of the community. So tonight I will be presenting on our public safety update. We will be looking at year-to-date stats for 2024 compared to this time last year. So we will get into it. All right, so crimes against persons have increased by 65 incidents. The primary contributing to this rise is a slight increase in the number of assaults that occurred during the summer months. 60% of these assaults were between known parties, which include incidents of domestic violence and assaults between acquaintances. The remaining 40% of assaults occurred between individuals with no known relationship. I believe the increase in our presence during the more populated nights with our downtown deputy details, plus the changing of our cops deputies shifts, which extended their hours into the early morning hours during those highly populated nights, had a positive impact in our downtown area and reduced the number of assaults occurring downtown. Regarding the sexual offenses, we had 11 crimes reported this year, which represents a 40% decrease from this time last year. Of the 11 cases, 6 involved known relationships between the suspect and the victim. One case involved 2 juvenile females who reported being followed by an unknown male at the beginning of this year. There was no description of that male, and we have not seen any cases like that since. That was an isolated incident. 3 cases involved misdemeanor sexual batteries, and 1 case involved an adult who sexually assaulted a juvenile, and that suspect was arrested and remains in custody at this time. None of these 11 cases were related or part of a series. The line graph on the left represents the overall crimes against persons by the number of victims, and the line graph on the right represents the overall crimes against persons by case number. So the difference is the line graph on the left is going to show where we had 1 incident, but maybe we had 6 or 7 victims. We did have a few incidents down at our beaches involving juveniles during the summer while they were out of school, and that would be, on the right graph, that would be represented by the unique case, and the left graph would represent the 11 juveniles that were involved in that incident. So I think it does show, these graphs show that we have not seen an increase of cases per se. We've stayed about the average. And actually, going into August, we saw a slight decrease in the number of assault cases. And then moving into crimes against property, we observed an increase in the burglaries in the beginning of this year. This was partially due to the South American theft group that was targeting all of San Diego County, LA, Orange County. We were seeing it regionally and all through the state. However, since May, burglary rates have remained below average. This trend is due to the decreased activity of the South American theft group and our adjustment of resources to be out in those areas that were targeted. The homes that back up against green belts, pathways, golf courses, where the individuals were using those types of access points to get into the backyards of the residents. The time change did help because they were focusing on that early dusk, nighttime hours. So we are paying attention to that. We know that we're coming back into it getting darker earlier with the time change, so we are aware of that, and that's going to be a primary focus to make sure that we are in those areas and that we're conducting those extra patrols. As what we have seen is that our presence alone with the vehicles driving around, it tends to deter them and they go elsewhere. In terms of catalytic converter thefts, we have seen a significant improvement. There were 38 incidents year to date in 2023 compared to only 13 in 2024. That makes a 66% decrease. The Prius still remains to be the vehicle targeted mostly. However, I believe our presence in the neighborhoods, our extra patrols are also acting as a deterrent. Plus, we have seen some significant arrests up in the Long Beach area, where a lot of these Cadillac converters were going to be fenced and sold and shipped out of the country. Larceny thefts have decreased by 10% year to date. However, we did notice an uptick in incidents over the past 2 months, primarily in July and August. This was due to an uptick in shoplifting and bicycle thefts occurring in our Encinitas Ranch Town Center. When we noticed that increase, we immediately started increasing our extra patrols. We've done several details in the shopping center with deputies and detectives in plain clothes, observing crimes of opportunity when it comes to the bicycles. And when they see that maybe somebody might be targeting a bicycle, they can call in uniformed deputies to go ahead and intervene and make an arrest if there's a theft. That has been also, I think we will see some noticeable improvements as we go through the end of the year, just by our presence being in those shopping centers. And then moving on to proactive measures. Back in April, when I assumed command of the North Coastal Sheriff Station, my commitment to all of you and to the community was to maximize my resources and our effectiveness in the community. A good way that I can measure that is by looking at our proactive productivity by the deputies. I think we still have some room for improvement. However, we have shown improvement in many categories. Overall, citations are up 2% year to date. This is citations for misdemeanor arrest, any arrests that can't be booked into jail. It also includes traffic citations, parking citations. The decline in August, you're going to see that kind of throughout. But that decline is being contributed to our traffic speed reduction that we did throughout the city, at which time our enforcement transitioned to an education and warning phase for the areas where the speed limits were reduced.
I have a question about that
Yes, sir.
particular slide. The citations increased 2%. So looking at that slide, I see the orange going across at approximately, say, 600 citations per month. It goes up in July to almost 800. So our 4 motor deputies are out, and that's kind of how they roll with 600 or so a month. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And we would have continued that upward trend. However, like I said, in August, we did move to a warning phase for that, for the speed reductions. Our field interviews increased by 90%, which I'm proud of the deputies' work and the activity that provides us. That's them getting out of their cars, contacting individuals, and then talking to them. It's usually a consensual contact, but figuring out what they're doing, if they are committing a crime. A perfect example of when we fill these kind of interviews out would be when we're offering resources to our unhoused. The field interviews is a way that we can document whether or not they're accepting our services, refusing our services, and it's a good way for us to keep track of that. We did see a slight 3% increase in our number of crime reports written by deputies. So that's just the crimes that we're responding to, calls for service. Overall, calls for service actually decreased by 7%. Deputy-initiated activity increased by 21%. The decline in August also correlates with the speed limit reduction. Traffic citations are captured within this category. So you can see that the deputy-initiated activities have steadily increased throughout from April into August, when I think we're seeing the reduced amount of traffic citations is probably what dropped us down.
To that point about the reduced number of citations, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a number of interactions has decreased because you're issuing warnings. Is that correct?
Absolutely, exactly. Arrests for individuals that are intoxicated while in public increased by 32%. So we took a very proactive approach to dealing with this issue. The zero tolerance in our downtown areas where we saw a lot of these types of offenses. I think that our focus will remain on this. This is something that will not be tolerated, and individuals that are found to be intoxicated to the point where they're unable to care for themselves will be arrested, and they will be taken to jail and booked into custody. I think with our zero tolerance approach, we saw a significant improvement in that type of behavior downtown.
I appreciate that effort and the improvement. I also hope that what we're attempting to do when we encounter an individual that intoxicated is to establish where they may have been doing their drinking. So if they bought a bottle and they're drinking on the street, that's one thing, but if they're being served to that point at one of our alcohol serving establishments, I think that's important to know. So I hope that's something that you guys are doing too.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment. That is something that is notated during the arrest, and then that also brings in alcohol beverage and control to help us with that for follow-up on the investigation. And then looking at our traffic enforcement DUI arrest, actually saw a 9% decline. Traffic collisions increased by 7% with a notable increase from July to August. I believe this was contributed to our tourism and the amount of people that were coming into our city to visit and enjoy our establishments and attend our beaches. Traffic citations increased by 12%, but also showed that same decrease in August. We did, continue to focus on traffic. I know that that is a primary focus of mine and the station, so we will see that rise back up to the 800, 900 numbers once the traffic calming measures are over and the warning phase can go back to enforcement. And then looking at homeless outreach, to date, we have been successful in referring 25 individuals to the Buena Creek Navigation Center. When I'm out in the community, I'm always talking to the members of the community, and I continue to hear the same complaint of our recreational vehicles parked along the beaches, in our neighborhoods, and a lot of these vehicles were being used as primary residence. So we took a very proactive approach starting in April, and we carried that throughout the summer. We have continued to have that stance, and as you can see, we wrote 334 citations for those vehicles. Some of those vehicles received multiple citations. I think we had somebody come to council and make that comment. But that is something that we will continue to do. I know that it can be a nuisance, and if they are violating the city ordinance, then we will enforce it, and with the goal of them either finding a safe, going to our safe parking lot, or finding somewhere where they can legally park overnight. But it won't be tolerated within our city. And then looking at bicycle safety, collisions involving e-bikes and bicycles have remained around the average. We have seen recently several collisions with juveniles running into parked cars or solo crashes that don't involve a vehicle, but primarily that was associated with the juvenile ridings. We did, tragically earlier this year, we did have one bicycle accident that tragically resulted in the loss of life. The accident was investigated. The investigation revealed that the primary factor in that collision was intoxication. The rider was found to have a blood alcohol level over the acceptable 0.08. There were no vehicles related to that accident. It was the bicyclist lost control of the bike. And then some of the things that we are still currently doing, and I know I spoke about this before, is at our schools in the mornings, we have a presence there with our motorcycle deputies. And then also after school at dismissal, that's a time when we have a lot of students exiting out of the schools, and sometimes it looks like a motorcycle gang coming down, and you have several kids on a bike, and that's a great opportunity, and we've used that opportunity to intervene, stop those kids, give them the education, and hopefully they can learn a lesson and not continue that behavior. We have seen positive impacts from us being at the schools, both by the drivers, the parents dropping kids off, and the students riding. It seems to help calm things down and make sure that everybody gets there safely. So that will be another focus that we continue throughout the school year. We took a proactive approach at North Coastal Station, and we created some educational flyers that will be distributed both on social media and at the schools. And we're hoping that this will be more of an education, not only for the students and the juvenile riders, but for the parents too. We see a lot of juveniles riding the e-bicycles that are out of class for their age, or sometimes we're seeing the e-motorcycles being ridden on our roadways that are illegal for anybody to ride, but they're being given and put in the hands of a juvenile rider. They reach speeds of 50 to 60 miles an hour, and I think obviously that can pose a safety risk to everybody. So we've created these flyers. Some of them deal with just education on what each of the classes are for the e-bikes, the speed limits that they need to adhere by, the ages of the rider that's allowed, and then the e-bike or e-motorcycle. This is more of an educational thing for the parents. Before they purchase that e-bike or e-motorcycle, they understand what they are purchasing and what is legal and not legal on our roadways. I think the e-motorcycles are not e-bikes. I think that's a big one that needs to get out to the parents. They need to understand that they are motorcycles, and anything that can go 60 miles an hour probably doesn't belong in somebody's hands that can't even have a driver's license. So we're hoping to really focus on the education for the parents before they buy one of these for their child. And then one of the most rewarding things that I get to do as a captain is get out into the community. I have yet to be able to read at the library, but I'm hoping I can participate that soon. But we are constantly out talking. I think that's an important part of my job. I think I need to be vulnerable. I need to be accessible, and that was a promise that I made early on when I took over command, and I will continue to do that. And sometimes, I get questions that the answer isn't something I'm proud of, but I will always own it, and I will always make sure that we are moving in a direction to make it positive and improve the quality of life for all of us here in Encinitas. But we've had some great events so far. We continue to do the coffee with the community. I encourage members of the public to please show up, come say hi. I'm constantly walking downtown, on duty and off duty, but I love interacting and being able to answer questions and hear the needs of the community. I think that's so important that that I am available to hear those needs, because if I can hear those needs early on, then we can be proactive in our response and stop it before it gets to be a bigger issue. Our focuses for 2024 will remain as they did in April. Homeless outreach will be a priority. Traffic enforcement will continue to be a priority. Our DUI enforcement, I don't think anybody that's making the decision to drive while intoxicated, that's obviously a zero tolerant and poses a safety risk for all involved on the roadways. And that is another focus. We will be doing DUI checkpoints and increasing our downtown DUI traffic cars, making them more readily accessible and able to make those stops on anybody that appears to be impaired. And then, of course, as I spoke earlier, the e-bike education and enforcement. It always is tragic when we respond to anybody in a collision on a bicycle just because it doesn't have the same protection that a vehicle does. And it's so important that our young riders are wearing protective gear, helmets, they have lights, reflectable clothing. It's just something that we will continue to focus on. And then I have some resources here. Our station telephone number, we're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. I often have people from the public come in unannounced and want to talk, and I can come out and talk, and we can go to the office even. So I open that up to everybody, and sometimes it's nice to get a break from what I'm doing anyways. So also the San Diego Sheriff's non-emergency line, 24/7. I know that there are frustrations sometimes with that line. This isn't just for the Sheriff's Department. This is for other departments and agencies as well. There can be a wait time on the non-emergency line. But I always recommend that if it is an emergency or you need a deputy to respond, call 911. That ensures that somebody will answer that line, and that will get us to be able to respond. And then with that, that'll conclude my presentation, and I open it up for questions.
Okay, thank you. I see you have a black band on your badge. I assume that's for the San Diego Police Department officer who was killed recently, Austin Machitar?
Machitar, yes, sir.
Machitar. Sorry about that. It's another reminder of the risk that the law enforcement officers in our region and across the country take in doing their jobs. Thank you for that. Councilmember Lyons.
Thank you, Captain Watts. I have a comment and a question. My comment is I want to take this opportunity to, again, thank you for the foot patrol emphasis that you have started. It may interface with the field contacts that you're also having, but I think it makes a really important difference to the community to have your deputies out of the cars and interfacing, even if it's just a smile or something, or just a nod as you walk by people. That makes a big difference. My question is, do you foresee any, because of our reduction in our speed limits, especially on some of the local streets, do you see any more use, a potential for more use of golf carts, electric golf carts? Are you seeing any of that yet? I'm just curious.
No, I can't say that I've seen an increase in the golf courts, but I have seen an increase in bicycle riding.
Okay.
It seems like we have seen an increase.
More, okay, all right. Thank you.
Many more parents riding kids to school. It's anecdotal. I have no empirical evidence, but it just seems pretty busy with bikes. Councilmember Ehlers.
Yeah, thank you. That was a very thorough report. I appreciate all of it. Could you bring up the traffic citation? Page, wherever that was. Yeah, right there. Good. So I had a chance to talk to you earlier this week about a little more historical perspective on traffic citations. And again, anecdotally, what I have noticed over 30 years, 20 years is a drop in enforcement, especially out in District 4. And so I went and pulled the financial reports for the city, and I shared this with Captain Watts. And I look back at there's a historical reference in there of traffic citations, along with a bunch of other metrics. And something happened between 2017 and 2016. In 2016, we had 14,800 and some odd citations, and the next year it dropped to 4,900. And if you look back in time, it was in the 10 to 12,000 range, 13 occasionally going along, which is more than 1,000 a month. And right here we're well under the 1,000 a month. Then after 2017, and after, it was down in the 4,000, so almost half the rate. And then maybe it crept up to 9,000 in there, but is there an explanation for that? And I totally appreciate your explanation about the month-to-month change in the last few months. That makes sense. You're warning people. But what happened back then? And is there anything we can do to get back to that? And the second part of that question is, have you had any change in a number of traffic units over that period?
No, we have not had any change to answer that question. We still have the same number of motor and traffic deputies assigned to the station in the city. After our discussion, I did go in and I was too kind of perplexed on why or what triggered that change. One of the things that I was looking into and continuing to look into is when the city went away from the red light cameras, red flex. I'm not sure what the date was of that, but that would show if we had a red flex camera system that was producing 1,000, 2,000 citations, that could have an impact on the stats during those time frames.
Okay, yeah, so maybe that's a question staff could answer just to
But
Go back and see.
I think
Maybe you remember.
I do. It was, I believe, in the vicinity of 2019 and maybe 2020. So not sure, but maybe we dialed it back a little bit. I'm not,
Yeah.
there was a move away from aggressive enforcement of those.
Yeah.
And so it could be that what happened is that when they were being reviewed, more of them were being kind of kicked out, right? I don't know.
Right. That would account for citations for the city stats. And we did see, I think we noticed a pretty significant decrease come that 2019, 2020, 2021, if I remember correctly.
Not really. It was 2021, yeah, because of COVID.
Right.
Yeah, that made sense. People weren't driving as much. It's interesting, the data that I pulled, and I haven't gone all, I think it ends around 2006, where it's been very consistent. And the red light cameras were after 2006, as I recall. I don't remember them occurring back in the 2004-5 range. I think they were in the late 2000, like 2009, 10, 11, somewhere in there. So it doesn't have so I think that's something we should investigate. I want to understand what changed and it's the question I keep asking every time. Do we have enough resources to enforce, especially with the lower speed limits? Because I think that's the only way we're going to get real safety out of this, if people actually pay attention to the speed limit. So that's ultimately, I want to understand the data so we can understand what the policy and what the funding needs to be accordingly.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Blackwell.
Yes, thanks for the report. It was a really good report to hear. And, I appreciate, and I've heard a lot from people that you and your team are getting out into the community and you're listening and you're taking action. And I think it's very much appreciated. I can say just anecdotally, the number of complaints I've heard from residents about RVs parking inappropriately or illegally is dropped a lot. So I think that shows there is better enforcement, and I appreciate that. I had two questions. One is, I know we've added 2 deputies to the COPS team, right? And has that affected how you've deployed officers? Has anything changed in how you're approaching that?
Yes, thank you for the question. By the city and the council approving those positions, it has greatly given us the opportunity to increase our coverage. So now we have a 7-day coverage, so the weekends, whereas before we did not. So having those 2 extra deputies to be available on Saturday and on Sunday really fills in the gap of an area that I think we identified that we were missing. So that is greatly appreciated. It has definitely helped, and it's also assisted with our outreach to the homeless during those weekend times.
Great, good to hear that, and I assume that will continue now that they're in place. The other question I had is now all 4 of the cannabis dispensaries are open, 2 downtown, 1 in Leucadia, 1 in El Camino Real. So have you had any uptick in incidents related to public smoking or inappropriate behavior with respect to those dispensaries?
With respect to the actual businesses themselves, we have not seen an increase in crime. With the smoking ordinance, we have done directed details focusing on individuals that are smoking in our downtown and throughout the city. But those resulted in citations. I think we've had 7 citations the past 2 months, and those were cigarettes, not cannabis or any kind of vaping.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate all the efforts and for this report.
Thank you, sir.
Chief Gordon.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. So Encinitas Fire Department give you a 2024 year-to-date update with the last quarter 2. So the total incidents we had in Q2 was 2010, and it breaks down as it usually does. We had about 74% being EMS, an assist or service. Those are like lift assists or leaking hydrants, stuff like that, is about 1.3%. Alarms, fire alarms, or medical alarms that are false alarms are a little under 8%. Motor vehicle collisions at about 7.2%, fires at almost 6%, and then hazardous conditions at 1.5%. So what I like to do is take all those numbers and look at the 36-month trends to see how we're looking for the future. We're looking pretty steady, right? You look at the graph here, it's pretty straight across the line, and there's a little bit of differences, but for the most part, we're in the high 1900 to 2000s, right? So if you look at each quarter, they're approximately about the same as you look through. So we like to look at that for if we have appropriate resources, if we have any uptick in certain calls so that we can focus on what those issues might be and help find some kind of mitigating efforts to do so. Another thing that we like to look at is our exchange rate, or a lot of people don't know, but we have mutual aid or automatic aid in California. So it's the closest fire or EMS apparatus to the call goes first, right? So if you're looking at these numbers, anything that's in a positive number is how much aid that we provided, and anything in the negative number is how much aid we took from another department. So Carlsbad, on the net aid, we provided them 37 hours, Del Mar 18 hours, Rancho Santa Fe, they gave us 84 hours, Solana Beach gave us 95 hours, and then a total of negative 124 means we've received about 124 hours of aid as opposed to giving aid. These numbers are a little skewed because that does involve the ambulances, and CSA 17 is our jurisdiction for ambulances, so AMR provides that service, which they are moving ambulances around, and so when the system looks at that data, it's not determining, oh, we moved an ambulance to help cover. It's just saying it's a Solana Beach or a Rancho Santa Fe ambulance helping. So it does mess the numbers up a little bit. One of the things we like to also look at is when that first unit arrives on scene. So if you look down at the bottom, that total net aid, we provide more assistance. So when you compare the data from the first slide at a negative 124, the reason it's so high is because any large incident, especially here in Encinitas where we have 6 stations, if a structure fire goes out, then most of our apparatus are going to that call, which leaves a big gap in the city. Having the mutual aid, other apparatus will respond in and take over the 911 calls that we might be missing because we're on a larger call. So that's one of the big differences of having the first on scene versus all the other apparatus that could come in and help. So the response times are, I think, one of our highlights. We have the best response times in North County and the North Zone. And turnout times, if you look at the turnout times at night, it's 1 minute and 33 seconds. During the day, it's 1 minute and 4 seconds. Now, turnout times are for when the firefighter gets the call at the station to when their wheels start rolling. And so while I think there's some discrepancies in how quick a captain pushes the button, if you look at the line itself, it's pretty flat, right? So there's not a lot of change. There's not a lot of concern to me that we're taking too long to get out of the station. The standard for us is at night, you have about 2 minutes and 30 seconds to get out, and during the day, it's 1 minute and 30, and we're well below those standards. So now we measure once the wheels start rolling to when we get on scene, and that's the travel time. So at night, it's about 5 minutes, and during the day, 4.5 minutes. Again, if you're looking across from Q3 2021 till now, it's pretty flat. There is a little bit of elevation there. But we'll just keep an eye on it to see if there's anything we can do to make it better. But with 30 seconds about, it's pretty minor. And then we add those together, it gets our response times. So the average at night is 6 minutes and 44 seconds, and then during the day is 6 minutes and 13 seconds. And then our total response time, now that's adding in what the processing time for dispatch. So we don't have no control over how fast dispatch gets the phone call and then alerts the fire station that they have a call. I can tell you that they're 90% of the time, they're alerting us within 1 minute and 33 seconds. So they're pretty fast. They have a lot of questions, triage questions to ask to make sure they're assigning the correct apparatus. So when we add it all together, at night, our total response time average is 7 minutes and 9 seconds, and then our average daytime is 5 minutes and 52 seconds. Now, averages are great, but 90th percentile is the best. That lets the public and you know that 90% of the time we're going to be as fast as we can, and right now that number is 7 minutes and 3 seconds. So that's 90th percentile. Our response time standard for the city is less than 8 minutes, so we're hitting that mark. So with the incident commitment analysis that we look at, Encinitas units were committed 3,616 times to calls within Encinitas, and then 431 times to calls that initiated outside of Encinitas. And that includes 2,090 hours of on-scene time by all of our apparatus. And so year to date, we've run 4,591 incidents, which equates to 9,737 responses. Now, I know you're asking, what's the difference? The difference is the incident is a single event, and the responses are basically how many apparatus are going to that call. So every medical aid, almost every medical aid gets an engine and an ambulance. So that would double that number as it goes up. Structure fires get between 4 to 12 pieces of apparatus. So it all depends on the call, and that's what drives that number up on the responses. We like to see that because it lets us know how many fire engines and ambulances we have running around Code 3 so that we can try and limit the amount of Code 3 responses we have through our triage system. We make sure that we are triaging the calls correctly with dispatch so that we can go Code 2 or no lights and sirens to lesser calls. And then when it's a more acute call, we can turn the lights and sirens on and get there quicker. So we try to be as cautious as we can while we drive, because one of the things is we don't want to cause problems as we're responding, right? If you look at the graph below, it just kind of breaks the call group up for you in the incidents. So if you're looking at the medical aids, 3,318 of those calls in 2024 have been medical aids. We've had 33 structure fires, and I'll kind of break those down a little bit later. But that is the grouping of what we have so far. Again, just a quick year to date. It's basically follows almost the exact same percentages as we looked at, and then EMS being about 75% of our calls. So some responses of note this year, we've had 4 incidents that were train versus pedestrians. We've had 23 incidents, vehicle versus bicycle, with 13 transports to the hospital. I just saw that says bike accidents. That's supposed to say bike accidents. 13 incidents with 6 transported to the hospital. Structure fires had 35 incidents with 9 actual working structure fires. We had 2 vegetation fires, and then we actually had 3 vegetation fires, but one of them was a couch that was out in the field, and so we changed that one. And currently we've sent out 2 strike teams. We had 1 type 1 strike team with 4 personnel go to the Shelley fire. And then we have a type 3 with 4 personnel on the line fire right now. So they're working today, and it looks like they're getting a good handle on that line fire. So we're expecting them to be back pretty soon. We've also sent 8 overhead positions to various fires across the state. And an overhead position is a fire line medic, a situation stat leader, all these different overhead spots that help provide different skills on the fire. It's not just go fight fire, but there's logistics, finance, operations, planning that all has to get done at the same time. So we help provide some of that overhead. Getting to lifeguards, it was a very busy summer. We have a new data collection system. So right now we're actually looking at the last 3 to 5 years on data and trying to collect all of it. A lot of that was put in on pencil and paper for a while. So we're moving a lot of that information over because we want to see what the impact of the sand is on the calls for service. So if you look at the enforcements, in the summer we had 7,116, and year to date 10,860. If you look at the prevents or safety contacts, so for the summer they had 20,015, and then for year to date 22,680. So you can see it was a pretty busy summer when we're 9 months into the year. And then rescues, they had 2,088 rescues just in the summer, and then 2,343 year to date. So they were pretty busy. I don't know if any of you had gone to the beach during July 4th or the summer even. The sand that's out there has created a runway, and it's really fun to see a lot of people out there having a good time and enjoying the beach. But there is an effect that it has on the lifeguards. So we're going to look at that and see how the sand is going to affect us in the future and see what we can do with our resources that we have. Some other statistics, our fire personnel have done 21,000 about hours of training so far. Prevention inspection hours have been about 1,959, and then our fire prevention permit review hours have been just over 3,500. So a lot of good work being done. Just to kind of let you know, we also have 3 firefighters right now in a fire academy. We dropped the Firefighter 1 Academy requirements this year to open up a recruitment pool. And then we partnered with Heartland Fire Academy, which is down in El Cajon. They let us bring our own proctors and assist with actually being able to see and oversee our own people, which has been very helpful. And it's a little shorter of an academy. So instead of the 20 applicants that we've been getting in our normal recruitments, we got over 120 people apply, and 70 of them were qualified really to come in and take the test. So it was a good jump, and actually a lot of North County fire departments are now looking to do the same thing that we're doing now. So it was a good outcome. We do have a new patrol.
Chief, you might want to clarify that we didn't reduce the requirements. Maybe explain that, because
No problem, yeah.
everybody kind of reacted to that.
Yeah, so we did remove the requirement for Firefighter 1 Academy, but as we put them through, we're doing it on our own. So instead of having a candidate go out, get a fire academy, and work for another department, we're bringing them in and sending them to the training and putting them through ourselves. So they still get a Firefighter 1 Academy when they're done. We're just the ones who are initiating that training now. And we have more control over it that way too.
And what it also does, the council, the previous subcommittee for the fire co-op years ago also suggested that the fire department look at ways to diversify the department. And so it's one way to have people who perhaps didn't have the means to already go through EMT or paramedic training. In this way, we can find people who are interested in becoming firefighters. They just maybe need a little bit of help to get through those coursework. And so we think it's probably going to give us more diversity in the fire department as well.
Yep. Thank you. We also have a brand new piece of apparatus going into service tomorrow, Patrol 236. It's going to go to Olevenheim and Station 6. And the current apparatus we have now is a county apparatus. So we're going to use that as a reserve for now. So you'll see a new red instead of green, or red and green fire engine, or Type 6 fire engine running around out there. So that's a good addition. We also have a new health and wellness program for the firefighters. We have a mental health program, a physical fitness program, as well as with our regular physicals every year, we have some cancer screening. So it's been a huge boost in the morale for the firefighters, and they're very grateful for that program that we're offering now. I will like to shout out to the sheriffs a little bit. They helped us do some of the homework and find the mental health clinicians to bring over that are first responder oriented. So they have provided a big help, and the new program has been seen to be a huge boost in what we're offering. So with that, I'll open up to any questions.
I have been first on the scene of motor vehicle crashes before, and I can't imagine doing a job day in and day out where you were rolling up to a scene like that. So I appreciate the fact that we're offering the opportunity for a little bit of mental health care. A couple of data points that I would like to see in your future presentations. One, the motor vehicle MVA be MVC, because crashes are what happens more often. We're moving away from accidents. And then the other is I'd like to see a category of MVC that is I-5. So creating that distinction between surface street crashes and the I-5 responses that you have is, I think, important for us to consider, given the resources that go to those crashes on Interstate 5. And I have the app Pulse Point, and I only get notifications for crashes, and it's pretty amazing how often you're responding to I-5 stuff. And then the other one I'd like to see on a slide is drone launches, or how much are you using the drone? And because I think that's important for the council to understand how it's being used and you know, how effective it is. So it would be great to see that. Deputy Mayor Blackwell.
Yes, I really appreciate Chief Gordon hearing about the response times and the data. That's really good to see. I don't think we've seen it in this format, at least not in a long while, so that was really good. I did want to say it's one thing to see the data, it's another thing to actually live those response times, and I will tell a very quick story because I was so impressed with the service, and our neighbor who was on his own, elderly gentleman, was suffering what he thought was a heart attack and a severe abdominal issue, and stumbled over to our house looking for help. And my husband and I, we called 911, and it was about 8 minutes. It seemed like the longest 8 minutes of our lives, probably of that person's as well. But it was amazing professionalism from the EMS team, and they got him to the hospital, and he is doing really well. So I was very grateful for that, and just got to see it, and wrote a note just to thank those firefighters who arrived. So again, thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you to you, Chief Gordon, and Captain Watts, public safety personnel here taking good care of the city of Encinitas. Thank you. Madam Clerk, can we continue with the oral communications, please?
Yes, let me get to that. Let's see, Kelly McCormick, Peggy Walker, and then Todd Lidhoff.
Good evening. This is Kelly McCormick. I'm a public health educator with San Diego Alliance for Drug-Free Youth. As you know, a new smoke shop recently opened within walking distance of San Diego Academy in a shopping plaza where many students go for lunch. When I visited the shop on its second day of business, I saw brightly lit shelves brimming with flavored tobacco products, which are illegal by state and city law, along with kratom, kava, flavored nitrous oxide, and psychoactive mushroom products. The shop also sells butane torches, scales, colorful bongs, some in rainbow and animal shapes that obviously appeal to youth, glass pipes, and lots of other drug paraphernalia. Both code enforcement and the Sheriff's Department are aware of this, and we thank them for being responsive to the community's concerns. I know the Sheriff's Department has already been there. This situation is a good reminder of the value of enacting a local tobacco retailer licensing program known as a TRL. A TRL program would give the city the authority over the location of tobacco retailers, allow for regulations on how products are marketed on site, and would provide funding for enforcement, which is one of the best ways to ensure compliance with tobacco control laws. Funding for compliance checks would come from the licensing fees paid by retailers and would not cost taxpayers any additional money. A tiered system of penalties would give retailers the opportunity to comply and would also level the playing field for retailers that are not selling illegal products. And also, those who are failing to check IDs would be held more accountable. Many cities, including the city of San Diego and the county, have successfully enacted TRLs. Laws are only useful if they are enforced. A TRL would give you the structure and funding to provide that enforcement. Thank you for considering.
Yes, I appreciate you speaking on this matter. Code enforcement is on this issue, and ironically, this same situation happened 10 or 8 years ago or so, same shopping center. So we did change our code at that time, as I recall. And it may be time to reevaluate and see what other tools we may have. Ultimately, if a retailer is going to open up without going through any permit review and tenant improvements, we're not going to find out until the public lets us know. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Peggy Walker. I'm also with San Diego Alliance for Drug-Free Youth. I'm a youth mentor and a health advocate. At a community networking meeting last week of local health, educational, and youth-serving organizations, it came to attention that among the many new questionable and intoxicating products bombarding our youth at local smoke shops, gas stations, and convenience stores, kratom is particularly pernicious and addictive. Kids are bombarded with all kinds of things, but kratom stands out because it's an opioid-like substance made from the leaves of a tree with serious side effects and high addiction risks. 22 states have enacted regulations or bans on the sale and use of kratom. Solana Beach is considering a ban, and the cities of San Diego and Oceanside have enacted prohibitions. The FDA has warned not to consume kratom due to concerns it puts users at risk of addiction, abuse, and dependence, and the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration classifies kratom as a drug and chemical of concern. So, one of the biggest problems with kratom is that it's totally unregulated. Another is that it's sold without age checks all over the place. Kratom raises a red flag also because its effects mimic psychiatric disorders. It affects the central nervous system, causes respiratory failure, damages the kidney and liver, impacts heart rate, and has caused death, as many as 40 in San Diego County. At our network meeting that I mentioned, mention was made of a parent dealing with a student dealing with kratom addiction, and a kratom ban was discussed. And so I come here tonight on behalf of concerned parents and school administrators to ask you to ban kratom and its derivatives in Encinitas. An emergency ordinance would be best to serve the interests of our young people. And then at some point, if you adopt a TRL, that kratom ban could be tucked into that TRL. So I hope that you will consider this to take at least one other unregulated intoxicating drug out of the reach of our children. Thank you very much for considering it.
Next speaker is Todd Linhoff, followed by Tom Gonzalez, and then Maria Ardance.
Hello, City Council. My name is Todd, and I live on Clark Avenue. And I'm here to speak to the concerns regarding traffic and infrastructure for the pending Clark Avenue development. It's been a while, I think, since this topic has been part of the agenda for the city council meetings. So I just wanted to go back over some of those items. I live 2 houses down from the proposed development on Clark Avenue. I'm right where the street narrows to the really narrow part, the bottleneck. And it's very narrow. I don't know if you guys have all driven down there, but I would encourage you to just drive down there, preferably during commuting hours, to see it for yourself. In front of my house, there's parallel parking and then 2-way traffic. Clark is the main artery for our neighborhood, and it's also supposed to be accommodate the traffic for this new development. And in front of my house, the parallel parking and the 2-way traffic, 3 cars don't fit side by side, curb to curb right there. So every time I go to and from my house, you have to pull off for oncoming traffic, and the increase in traffic from this development, it's going to create an impasse. Cars are going to be trying to back up out of the way, pull into people's driveways to allow other cars to come. It's going to create blockades, and it's simply not going to be safe. During the previous meetings, there wasn't really ever a solution brought to us, and now things are moving forward. It's becoming a bigger concern for me and my family and the neighbors. Clark barely gets by with the current traffic load, and it's just we can't imagine what's going to happen. It's just not going to be safe. We welcomed our first child last year, and we're worried about the safety of him, walking on our streets. And there's 5 major streets in our neighborhood area. Of those 5, only 2 of them have any sidewalks, and of those 2, the sidewalk's only on one side. And so previously there had been some mentions of red curbing to increase the traffic lane, but all that's going to do is push parking further down onto other streets, and that's going to push pedestrians walking on the street in the traffic to get to the houses they're trying to go to. So I'm just asking the city to please look at this and look at it from a safety perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name's Tom Gonzalez. I'm here tonight because I'm deeply concerned about the safety of our community. I hope you hear me out. When I got that notice about the Clark Street permit extension, it hit me. We need to talk about this. So I grabbed my tape measure, I headed out to Clark and Union, and what I found was eye-opening. Picture this, Clark Street, barely 22 feet wide. Union Street's even narrower, less than 20 feet where the new complex would start. I don't know about you, but I've seen what happens on these streets today. Cars parked on the side, drivers playing a game of who goes first just to get by. And that's now before we add 199 units. Curious, I dove into all the developers' applications, 700 plus pages of documents. I looked at the traffic studies. I looked at the subsequent analysis, the appeals, the back and forth, the city staff response. And I was left scratching my head. These studies are all based on, and the data is all based on projections that these are normal 2-way streets. They're not. They're not even close. A proper 2-way street with parking, according to our own development standards, should be 40 feet wide. We're half of that. So and here's where it gets concerning. They're projecting a 75% increase in traffic on Union Street alone. We're talking about a car every 17 seconds during rush hour. It's over 200 cars an hour going down the street less than a quarter of a mile long. I don't even know if it's physically possible. How do everyone pull over to do this? So, and it's not just the traffic, it's the safety. So we just had the fire department make a presentation with response times. I don't know how you would get those response times. Both our own fire code as well as the state of California fire code demands that we have 20 foot wide streets for emergency vehicles, 26 feet when there's a property or a building over 30 feet tall, like the Clark Street apartments. Yet somehow this plan got its thumbs up. I've looked through over 1,000 pages of documents, permits, regulations, council meetings. I can't find any explanation for how this got a thumbs up, or why are we ignoring our own rules here? So I'm standing here tonight asking each of you, do you feel confident that you have all the facts, that you truly understand how this will impact our community safety? Because if there's even a shadow of doubt, I'm urging you, let's take a step back, let's look at the real physical conditions of these streets, and let's make sure we're not putting development ahead of our residents' safety. We all want our city to grow and thrive, but not at the cost of putting lives at risk. So thank you for listening to me, and I hope you seriously consider this.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Maria Ardance, followed by Cynthia Shea Palmer, and then Jim O'Hara.
Hi, everyone. So yesterday, instead of going to the mayoral debate, I went to the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting after learning that L7 was going to be on the agenda. Given the strong community support for developing L7 as parkland, I was really disappointed that the topic was actually on the agenda for yesterday, knowing most involved residents would probably go to the debate besides me, because I wanted to support Glenn. However, it was refreshing, actually, to see everyone of the commission members agree that more parks are needed, and L7 seems like this perfect spot. And in fact, everyone seemed pretty surprised, like, how did this even get designated surplus land in the first place, right? So, they indicated their role for the evening was to decide if L7 is an appropriate place for a park and if the donated money from Glenn should be accepted because of the naming rights. Okay, so what? How can members of the Park and Recreation Commission have no idea that the city of Encinitas purchased L7, I think in, 1998? To be, with park funds, if I'm not mistaken, to be developed as parkland. How did they not know that was an appropriate park space if that's what it was purchased for in the first place? So I don't understand how they went to the meeting unaware of this. How were they unaware it was even in the general plan for our city? What is going on? So, the few of the residents who were able to attend the meeting, we all wanted to provide them insight, but they didn't want to hear from us because we were past the public comment time. They did also express concern about obviously not wanting to step on the housing task force. So I ask you guys this: why did the commission go into these discussions having no frame of reference for this? I mean, how did they not know, just the history without emotion? Bought in 1998, bought to be a park, bought with park funds, in the general plan as a park, XYZ debates over the years. Recently slated to be surplus land against public opinion, and now back to where we were with Glenn, trying to get this back as a park. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, Tony, you even mentioned yourself, let's get this moving fast. Glenn's not a spring chicken, paraphrasing what you said. So I just don't understand why there was this waste of time yesterday, because they've basically now tabled it. Is it the end of the world, a couple more months of discussion, possibly 1 month, maybe 2. No, it's not the end of the world, but it was such a perfect example of government inefficiency by not even giving them context. Because if they honestly had the context, they would have easily moved forward. They all agreed it's a perfect spot for a park. So I'm trying to,
Thank you.
Anyway, sorry guys, I was trying to make it quick. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for this time. My name is Cynthia Shea Palmer. I'm also up here in regards to the Clark Development Project, and basically what kicked this off is the fact that the developer has requested a permit extension to the project. Some of us got a notification. I want to comment on the lack of diligence. There has not been any ground broken on this lot. Right now, it's a vacant lot. It's been vacant for 2 years, and the property has been neglected. It's been accumulating trash and brush. It's become a hot spot for homeless. The fire department was here. There was a big fire structure there, multiple fire trucks. And during 2021, when this is going on, we were promised by the developer that they would be a good neighbor, and they have not been a good neighbor. Just this last week, there's homeless people going through the lot again. So there has not been diligence on construction on this. It's been neglected. Okay, so I want to just make sure that gets in the record. The second item is there are a lot of neighbors who are quite upset that they did not get notified. They felt that they were deprived of their right to comment. Now, I know there's an Excel spreadsheet that says that, these are the people that have been sent notices, but a lot of people did not get them. And it's 500 feet. Well, 500 feet around that development is the freeway. The freeway takes a good, 30% of the notifications. And when we had the CPP, Citizen Participation Plan, it was 1,000 feet. And talking to neighbors who did not get this, they say they get more notifications for solar panels getting installed than they get for a 200-unit development. Now, maybe 500 feet is good for one unit, but the Clark, remember, it is embedded and wedged in the back of our neighborhood against the freeway. At least it should be 1,000 feet. So we would like to ask for proof that people got notification, not an Excel spreadsheet, because there are quite a few, and we're doing quite a tally. That being said, there is not much time because it seems almost strategic that we're getting notified at the very last minute. We got notification of the renewal comment after Labor Day. That means they sent it right before Labor Day. We lost 5 days, only 5 days to comment. It happened again on the notification of determination. They said on a Thursday they might have an answer by the end of Thursday. Guess what? Closed Friday. Saturday, Sunday, we got notified on Monday. That leaves us 5 days for an appeal. So there's some behavior that it appears that they're making it very difficult for residents to respond. And there's a lot of frustration. Thank you.
Jim O'Hara.
Hold on just a second. We can't hear you. Is it working now?
Yeah, it's working. He just needs to lift it up. On the right, there's a button. Hold it on the top, and then it should raise it. It's kind of slow. There you go.
Now it's working.
Just test it. Talk into it. Hello? Yeah. Hello? Yeah, it's still dead. Hello? I'm happy to talk, but we want to make sure you get.
Did you?
Sure. It's on. Hello? Hello?
I wonder if the microphone got disconnected.
Something's happening. Hello? We're better? Okay. Good evening, Council. My name is Jim O'Hara. I'm representing District 2 here today on behalf of Clark Avenue, Union, and of course, Puebla and the district down there on behalf of the Clark Apartments and what has been coming on right now. As you've heard, it was recently, the permit came up for renewal after 2 years. There were a lot of questions around the renewal, questions of public notice, municipal code for the road with ingress and egress apparently may have been ignored. There are different air procedures, which we didn't touch on. Air quality procedures used at Paredes and Clark, which are close proximity, which we could touch on more in later conversations. Admittedly, defective traffic study was used in this process as well. But most importantly, in the renewal process, there were 28 public comments submitted. Of the return of those 28 public comments, the most notable reason for a review of a renewal was diligence and lack of diligence. I look at Clark Street and I look at the apartments there, and I look at a property that no one has touched the ground. The developer has not gone near it. In fact, so much so that a homeless encampment was able to establish itself and create a fire which became a danger to the neighbors. To me, that doesn't seem very diligent. If that's the question of what a developer is supposed to do, they're supposed to be diligent. That clearly is not it. So within that, the other piece of that was all of those 28, reading through all those 28 responses or those 28 comments. The responses were all basically cut and paste, what I would call cut and paste responses, not very much connected to the residents, knowing the neighborhood. And I think it points to something that I'd like to point out here. We have an absence of district representation here. We have a council member who's not here, and I know we haven't been doing district representation for a long time, and maybe this has never happened before, and I'm not putting this on you or council member Hinsey. She's pregnant. She has very much the right to not be here. But there's an absence of district representation, which this neighborhood, this iconic heritage-rich neighborhood, sent in 28 requests, and not a single council person responded. That's a lack of representation. That's why we went to districts. That's why we did that. So what I'm asking you to do is the people of Clark are going to head and they're going to appeal this renewal of this permit. And I'm asking you guys to step in and get involved in this process. Please make sure it gets public view. It gives them the chance to publicly speak on this issue and gets addressed either in front of the Public Planning Commission or right here at City Council. I think this neighborhood really deserves it. Like I said, it's an iconic heritage-rich neighborhood. I'm about to finish up. And if there are any questions on the comments they've made, I want to invite you to come down there tomorrow, and I'll walk the neighborhood with you at 5 o'clock, and I'll bring these residents out here who will happily do the same to go over these questions, because we want to be represented by this council.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
And that concludes public speakers.
Okay. And it's 8:40. That's a first. We're going to take a break, 10 minutes, and we will be back at 10 minutes to 9. That's 12 minutes, actually, so. Okay, we're back, and we are just now on the consent calendar. Oh, wait a minute, we are report from closed session.
Are we ready to go?
Yep.
Thank you,
Oh,
Mr.
we
Mayor.
were waiting for, okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Approximately 4 p.m., City Council opened closed session. Approximately 4:30, City Council recessed back from closed session. They discussed one item on the closed session, the special closed session agenda. Closed session, conference with legal counsel, whether to initiate litigation under the authority of Government Code Section 54956.9D, subsection 4. Number of cases, 1 case. City Council authorized this office to initiate litigation. The identity of that litigation will be revealed if and when that litigation is filed. And that concludes the closed session report. Thank you.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor. Item 8C has been pulled from the agenda by staff and will be placed on a future agenda.
What's this letter?
8C as in cat.
Charlie. Okay.
And then moving to the consent calendar, other than that change, no items have been pulled by members of the public.
Okay, thank you. So that means we have items 8A, 8B, and 8D as in dog for consideration. I would entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
All right.
My computer has frozen. Give me 1 second. And motion does carry unanimously with Councilmember Hinsey absent.
Okay, thank you. Now we're on to item 10A, which is the Encinitas Community Park Amenities Assessment. And this was a long time coming. This was something that we got in a budget cycle that was 2 years off, I believe it was. And so we started this conversation a long time ago, and it's great to get to the end, or to this milestone. So looking forward to the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Kranz, Deputy Mayor Blackwell, and members of the council. My name is David Norgard. I'm the Park Operations Manager, and I'm happy to be here this evening to provide an update on the Encinitas Community Park Amenities Assessment. For a little background for members of the public that are here, Encinitas Community Park is a 44-acre park located at 425 Santa Fe Drive. A final EIR was prepared for the Hall Property Community Park project pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act and officially adopted by the City Council on October 22, 2008. The park was completed and opened in January 2015. ECP includes a very popular playground, passive walking trails, sports fields, a world-class skate park, and perhaps the nicest dog park in the region. The approved master plan shown here was used for the EIR and major use permit for the park. When ECP opened in 2015, the park did not include two of the major amenities which were included in the major use permit and shown in the approved master plan. That's the teen center in the upper left or the northwest corner of the park, and the aquatic center in the upper right or northeast corner of the park. After the park opened, staff and the Parks and Recreation Commission have received feedback from the community requesting sand volleyball and other amenities to be added to ECP. Beginning in fiscal year 2019-20, the Park and Recreation Commission work plan included public outreach to gauge interest for adding sand volleyball courts to ECP. The commission met with sand volleyball players, stakeholders, and vendors. On May 12, 2020, the commission made a recommendation to add sand volleyball courts to city facilities, including ECP. Similarly, in fiscal year 21-22, the commission work plan also included studying pickleball use at city facilities and made a recommendation for court sharing as there are no dedicated city-owned pickleball courts. At the June 9, 2021 special city council meeting, City Council directed staff to investigate the feasibility of adding new amenities at ECP, including sand volleyball and pickleball courts, and directed $30,000 in capital funding for the fiscal year 22-23 budget. Staff prepared a request for quotes to hire a consultant to analyze the feasibility of amending the EIR major use permit. With me here tonight are Amanda Siebel and Elizabeth Ocampo Vivero of RRM Design Group, who was selected and hired to lead the amenity assessment. RRM Design Group reviewed the previously certified EIR and the major use permit. They performed site analysis and developed high-level concepts to analyze the feasibility of adding sand volleyball and pickleball courts at ECP. RRM Group also performed a desktop analysis of potential impact areas, including traffic, noise, air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, and parking. The concept diagrams that were considered included 3 options for analysis, which we will review in the following slides. This slide shows the current condition of the northwest corner, identified in the master plan as the teen center. The area is mostly used as a passive area with picnic tables and an open lawn area. This slide shows the current condition of the northeast corner, identified in the master plan as the aquatic center. This area is used as the host of dog days of summer and various commercial use permits, including dog training, yoga classes, and boot camps. For the options that RRM analyzed, option 1 included 2 sand volleyball courts on the northwest corner of the site where the previously planned teen center was shown. The illustration includes opportunities for spectator seating, picnic tables, and shade. Retaining walls and steps would be needed to accommodate the sloped grade in this area. Option 2 included 2 sand volleyball courts on the northwest corner of the site and up to 12 pickleball courts in the northeast corner of the site where the aquatic center was previously planned on the master plan. This illustration also includes opportunities for spectator seating, picnic tables, shade, a concession area, and a restroom. And option 3 combined those together to include 4 sand volleyball courts and 8 pickleball courts on the northwest corner of the site where the previously planned aquatic center was shown in the master plan, and it includes the amenities that I previously mentioned. So in summary, based on the analysis that RRM Design Group has determined that amending the major use permit and preparing an addendum to the EIR for additional recreational amenities is feasible. The concept diagrams and amenities that were analyzed are high level. If this project were to move forward, concepts would progress based on public input, further analysis, technical studies, and detailed design. A comprehensive, accurate, and objective project-level EIR should be prepared for any new amenities that fully complies with CEQA. In order to amend the major use permit and prepare an addendum to the EIR, a consultant would be required to perform the necessary analysis and lead the planning, design, outreach, development, and permitting. High-level cost estimates for a consultant to perform the necessary outreach and technical studies, planning, design, and permits is estimated to be range from $350,000 to $500,000. And additionally, high-level costs for implementation range from $500,000 for option 1 to approximately $3 million for options 2 and 3. The recommended action before you tonight is to receive the staff presentation and provide possible direction to staff. That concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time, and staff are here for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Are there public speakers on this
Yes,
side?
right now we have 2, Ross Ritter, followed by Eva Meyer.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I'm Ross Ritter, citizen of Cardiff, and I'm also the chair of the Encinitas Public Parks and Recreation Commission. I'm speaking today not as a Parks and Rec Commissioner, but as a well-informed private citizen. The report was presented to the Commission, the Parks and Rec Commission last night, and the agenda item was only to receive the presentation to staff, from staff, and not to make a commission recommendation to council. However, as a private citizen, I did just want to recommend updating the ECP master plan and provide funding to include volleyball and pickleball courts in the reserved location, and in my opinion, that would be in the aquatic center location. The original ECP master plan called for the teen center and the aquatic center as per the presentation. Staff has indicated that they feel that the current programming for teen programming can be accommodated at the Encinitas Community Center and Senior Center, as well as the Pacific Arts Center. We have not received any recent community interest in building a teen center, so I feel like that particular amenity is not as in demand as it was 15 years ago, perhaps, when the master plan was originally devised. And then, of course, we didn't have Pacific View at that point as a available option for teen programming. Regarding the aquatic center, I feel like the millions of dollars it would take to develop an aquatic center, it just cannot be accommodated within our city budget priorities, and that when I was in my first term as a commissioner, when I was involved in the ad hoc, we could not develop any type of interested partnership with outside individuals or with schools or other opportunities. I've also been instructed or was told by a previous parks director that the reserved land for the aquatic center really was a bit small for what would ideally be needed to accommodate that type of center. And additionally, I feel like there are new pools that are being built in nearby communities that will ease some of the needs for swimming that will be built in the next few years. I know I'm ending in my time here. If there is interest in me providing additional background on why I feel like option 3 is our best background, I'm certainly happy to answer any questions with regards to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eva?
Hi, my name is Ava Meyer, and I did not anticipate speaking today, so I'm taking over for someone else who was planning to speak. I just heard about this yesterday.
Pull the microphone down toward you.
I just heard about this yesterday, and I understand now that it's really at the early stages, but I just wanted to speak as a pickleball player and on behalf of hundreds of people that I know through pickleball, literally. It has become, as you all know, probably one of the fastest growing sports, probably around the globe, but certainly in the United States and definitely in San Diego. It's become such a community building event. There are so many people I know that hadn't done a sport their entire lives and are now out there thriving outdoors playing pickleball. It's irritating to some, I get it. It's a very annoying sound, but this particular spot that's been proposed is perfect for it because there's nothing around. There's the shopping mall on the north, parking around there on the side, and then the freeway. So it's just a perfect spot for it. Not only is it a community building thing, and it's the whole broad range of ages have been flocking to this sport. We're seeing now it's being offered in the high schools as a new sport for youth. So people who say it's just, yuppie moms, they're wrong. I mean, it's everything from young teen kids to elderly and retired folks. It's just really been a huge boon to people's health and well-being, their sense of community. It's really quite amazing. There's very few opportunities in the city to play. There's the Cottonwood Creek that has 8. There's always a line. There's always people waiting. There's the new Moonlight converted ones that I think are only 4. And then there's one, I think, at Olympus that's also serves as a basketball place, but there's just a huge demand. You can't reserve courts at Bobby Riggs unless you've been designated as a priority influencer. So you just can't even book a court there. There's just no place to play, and tons of people that want to play. In terms of the volleyball courts, I see why it might make sense to have more courts, but I don't know a whole lot of people who have been burning for extra volleyball courts. It seems like probably most of you, if you ask yourselves how many people do I know that play pickleball, it's a lot more people who play and who need courts. So I vote for option 2 to maximize the number of courts that are available to the public. And I think that's really all I have to say.
Thank you.
That concludes speakers on this item.
Councilmember Lyons.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This is in my district, and it seems like I'm kind of tied to the community, our community in regards to parks anyway. So I perhaps track this a little bit more closely, and I track Parks and Rec Commission, and I track the community as far as what our parks are doing and how we're doing. So I have a couple questions for our staff about process and then about budget. And then I probably have more questions later, but I first start with the process in that this first came before us in 2020, as you clearly stated. So one of the concerns with us having this on our agenda tonight is I feel I've not been informed that we've had other outreach. Certainly this is a public meeting, but there's a community of volleyball players and a community of pickleball players. We have one tonight at after 9 o'clock. It's a little bit too narrow of a public forum to really get good feedback from the community of users that are interested in this. So my question then is, have we done any other outreach? And I think I know that we haven't, but I do want to ask that question.
That's a good question. A lot of that outreach has been performed already through the Parks Commission, and the scope of this task was rather narrow, just to determine whether it's feasible to amend the EIR and the major use permit. And if this were to move forward as a project, it would open up into much more public engagement to re-engage with the volleyball players, the pickleball players, neighbors around that area, current park users, to make sure that we get the current state of what the demand is.
So the EIR process that you're talking about that will be next, when this moves forward, would be the opportunity for the public engagement to give input on the amount of volleyball courts and the amount of pickleball courts?
That's
Yes.
correct. Yes.
What about the fact that we have a master plan that has decades of community input, lots of dialogue over many years that formed what is our master plan, and we're proposing to deviate from it? How does that play into the process of getting public input on this concept?
Sure, that's a great question. So when the ECP master plan was put together, I believe there was something like 17 total public meetings, some outreach and some meetings such as this. So I think it's going to be important with any step forward to make sure that we re-engage with the public and get their opinion on what this should look like. And I think that's going to have to, again, include a lot of rigorous public input.
So part of the way forward then is what you might consider in an EIR the do nothing approach, because usually you have one do nothing option. That's why I said that. But essentially, the do nothing approach is you don't change the use from an aquatic center or a teen center to something different. Is that true? That would be one of the options.
That's certainly one of the options that the council has at their disposal.
So it sounds like the next step is pretty laid out. It's our standard environmental and public outreach process that we would need to go through to fully vet this. A lot of people think, well, pickleball is very noisy, but by the highway, maybe that's a good location. That's probably more of an intuitive call, but we would actually do the noise evaluations and we'd get some data behind that, and we would know what the answer to that is.
That's correct. The next step forward as a project would include all the technical studies for greenhouse gas, parking, trips per day, noise, and so we'd have to study that at a project level as opposed to just the kind of intuitive, what do we think it looks like level.
So is the best, maybe this is a question for city leadership, but is the best way forward tonight for us to say, yes, move forward into the next phase and evaluate several options?
Councilmember Lyons, I would say that that this is something that's going to end up in the budget discussions next year. There's $500,000 for the EIR and the, you know, the outreach and other things. So we now know it's feasible, and so it's now going to get in the queue for budget money.
Okay, and that went to my next question, which was budget. So, and if I could, Mayor, just ask one clarifying question then about budget. You were saying options 2 and 3 were $3 million, but in our infrastructure task force, we identified $1.25 million. How does that make sense?
Good evening. Dave Knopp, I don't have my plate. Director of Park and Recreation and Cultural Arts. Can I ask for the question again?
Just about the budget. David identified that 2 and 3, the budget estimate was $3 million each, and actually one was $500,000, I think, if I noted that right. So you've got those numbers. In our infrastructure task force budget list, it's item number 109. And it's identified as 1.25 million. And I just was wondering where the disconnect is there, if there was
I
any.
actually think I can answer that question, but if you have a better answer, then you can toss it out afterwards. But when the infrastructure task force took up all of the different plans and departments presented, they presented with the materials that were available. So climate action plan, estimates on solar panels for roof of city facilities, parks master plan, different types of things. They did not go through a process of updating all of that information unless there was something that was really recently done. So my guess is that's what's in the report from 3 years ago or what have you, or somebody took a swag at that particular amount, and now you have professionals that are helping you with it who probably have more updated cost information. Did I do okay, Director Knopp? Okay.
Fantastic.
Okay, it's an evolution of the analysis of the cost. All right.
More questions?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Blackwell.
Yeah, I just had a couple of clarifying questions. So maybe you could go back to the option 1 map first. Yeah, maybe go to option 2, thank you, because it shows the 2 parcels. What is the acreage of where those would be placed? How much? It's 44-acre total park with everything in it. Do we have even a rough guess of what it would be?
You know what, I don't have that information, but I'd be happy to get it and provide it to the city manager.
Okay, thank you. That'd be helpful follow-up. And I think what I understood from your earlier comments about the number of courts we have. First, pickleball, we don't have many other city-owned pickleball courts. That's correct? There's just a handful.
There's no dedicated pickleball courts within the city. Cottonwood Creek has a court sharing system. Moonlight
right.
Beach has a court sharing, and the pop-up court at Olympus is also on the basketball court.
And sand volleyball courts?
Sand volleyball courts, we have those at Moonlight Beach, Lucadia Oaks, and Scott Valley.
Okay, so we have others of those. Okay, that's helpful. And are there other locations for either pickleball courts or sand volleyball courts within our park system?
I think we'd have to take a look case by case. When
Making you guess at 9 at night? That's
well,
not very nice.
I know that when the Cardiff Sports Park expansion was done, that master plan included a bubble for a sand volleyball court. Pickleball would be much more case by case given the noise.
Okay, okay. Really, those were my questions. I can hold my other comments for later, but thanks for that.
Councilmember Ehlers.
And you went right down the path I was thinking. I think this is premature tonight to make any definitive direction, picking 1, 2, or 3. I have just basic questions about what will fit, what won't fit, and has the world changed since over the 15 years since we originally had that master plan? So before we go through all the time and expense of an EIR and a master plan, I think I'd like to see an interim step, far cheaper, before the budget process. And I agree with Mayor Kranz's comment that this is going to end up in a budget issue there. But I need to know some certain information. I need to know what's a typical, did we have the correct size for an aquatic park? Even if we had partners, is there enough room on this space? And I don't expect you to know it tonight, but I'm telling you what this interim step I'd like to see. I think that dovetails very nicely with Deputy Mayor Blackwell's question about how big is that area. Then I would also look at, what was the assumption in the old EIR for how many parking spaces get allocated to that use? In other words, are we going to net up or net down, just, on a thumbnail sketch on parking spaces? The need, I mean, not actual spaces. I understand based on this, we're not planning on changing it. The other thing I would ask is a little bit of comparative study to other neighboring cities, similar cities, on how many pickleball courts they have or have planned. We seem to be on the low side probably, especially given as many friends as I have playing pickleball anymore. And to a lesser extent, I mean, I think it's good to consider the sand volleyball courts. We do have a beach that, with all that new sand, we kind of have, a temporary sand volleyball courts can be put in a lot of places just to play for a day or whatnot. So, but it is nice to have the facility too. So what I see happening is asking staff, what do you recommend? What kind of analysis would you recommend before we spend big money so that we can come back and do a better informed decision here with more input from aquatic people, with enough notice so the aquatic people know to come, the sand volleyball people know to come, and the pickleball people know to come. And I know we could end up filling the place with pickleball, but I just feel like tonight is way too premature. So and if you want to respond to my question about, do you think you could pull a lot of this information together without triggering the full EIR?
So maybe I can answer that, Councilmember Ehlers. So the staff did not recommend adding sand volleyball courts or pickleball courts. This was brought to the council by the Parks and Rec Commission as sand volleyball courts. And somewhere along the way, because I've asked about this because it was lost on me, I couldn't remember when we added the pickleball courts.
It was me. I did it.
Oh, I knew it.
I
knew it. I remember. I kind of vaguely remember that. But
my mentor, Neil Brewington, sends me emails about pickleball about every other day.
yeah, I remember. Okay, so we put money in the budget to do exactly this analysis for the task at hand, which was sand volleyball courts, and then pickleball got added. That's it. It wasn't staff-driven. Parks and Rec Commission were notified that there's no plan, no funding path, et cetera. So I think what you're really asking for is when you start drilling down into all of these other things, we don't think we need to add anything. But it would be great. I do hear the need for pickleball courts. We hear about that we heard about a skate bowl and we heard about sand volleyball. So I think where we're at right now is answering the question that was originally brought to the council, which is sand volleyball courts and pickleball. And then if you want to do something else, you can, but that we've reached our limit of the budget and the assignment to the Parks and Recreation Department.
Okay, so I would propose that the direction to staff be, through the manager, an assessment of what the cost would be to do the outreach that we need to do, to hear from pickleball players, from volleyball players, from aquatics folks, and from Jennifer Hewittson's crowd, which doesn't want a doggone thing. They want passive use park. And so I think that's probably the most important step, is to do that outreach and gather some information to determine the shape, the scope of the supplemental EIR that may be done if the budget allows for that. So
it doesn't currently?
No, it doesn't currently, and so I understand that. So the question is, how much does it cost to do that outreach? And that may be the next thing that's discussed at budget time, because we don't want to budget for an EIR if it's panned and we find another place for pickleball courts and there's other alternatives. The key question when the volleyball courts came up for the park was, hey, by the way, there may be room for pickleball, and then we can address some of the needs of the pickleball players. So that would be my motion, is that we ask the city manager to bring back a report that tells us how much the outreach would cost.
Mayor, I'll second that. I think that totally nails where I would want to go as well. And I want to just only add that I think this is a good job. I think this is exactly what our fine Parks and Rec Commission asked for it to be done, and we said, yes, let's do it, and we funded it, and it took us 4 years. But it's now at a point where we realize what the trade-off is, and I actually, maybe somewhat naively, didn't realize that an option that I like would remove the aquatic center. I just didn't realize that that would be the outcome. And when I see that, I'm like, okay, that pulls in another user group. And so we really need to vet this more, and I don't want to do it very expensively. So I support that motion.
Right. I would also point out that the aquatic center kind of hasn't been pursued because of the many millions of dollars it takes not only to build an aquatic center, but to maintain an aquatic center. We had the facilities guy from San Diego School District come here, a couple of years ago and say, hey, we're interested in this site, possibly for a pool, and they never came back. And they did break ground at Torrey Pines for an aquatic center. I think that what they looked at was that we could only afford one in their bond measure. So I think that that's not an option. And I know that the council previously, as part of the master plan, had made it clear the only way there was going to be an aquatic center is if there was a private aquatics group that was willing to raise the money to build it. And again, I haven't seen that group either. So Councilmember Ehlers?
Yeah, kind of going along that line, if we could add a couple of other asks to your motion, just to look at how many pickleball courts are in Solana Beach, Carlsbad, any other, one other city or something. I'm trying to understand, are we really at the deficit? I remember, what's the park up in Carlsbad? They opened up quite a few pickleball.
Stagecoach or?
Poinsettia Park. Yeah, ask a pickleball player. I would, yeah, you guys know where everyone is. I'd like to know that, because I think that we need to, I'm actually want to go one step further in understanding, do we need them in other parks around the city too? And I think the answer will probably come back yes. And therefore, we don't have to build them all in this park. So, agreed. Yeah, there are those, that's where the EIR would come in, and we can adjust accordingly. The other thing is, I really want to understand, because we're going to have, I predict, some aquatic people, but I'd like to know, like the Torrey Pines Aquatic Center, how large is it, and would it fit here, and how many people does it tend to serve? Was the vision, and I don't recall the exact vision for the aquatic park, but was it intended to be a pool that can handle all the kids from all of Encinitas, or just certain events? First blush, when I look at the size of that space, I look at the original rendering that had the probably recreational pool and then a Olympic pool. It just looks too small. I look at it and go, compare that to the Y and their indoor pool, and they're probably comparable. And I see we're trying to build something in a space that, if it has to be the size that ultimately would require, it probably would take up more space than is available here. And maybe they're, the better part of valor may be not to do the aquatic center. I'm not judging tonight, but I just want to make sure whatever we envision to go there, if we're going to plan for an aquatic center, then we need to make sure today that we have enough space for what would be anticipated. So my friendly amendment would be, could we add doing some benchmarking on neighboring cities on pickleball courts per capita, and then also checking the Torrey Pines and any other nearby aquatic centers and seeing how they compare in footprint and whether they would fit here.
Well, I don't mind making that some direction. I think that what we're looking for from the city manager and her team is to bring back the information about what outreach would look like, and I would think that that information that you've just asked for would be part of that. The preparation to have a better understanding of those issues that you just raised.
So you think it would be part of what they brought back, or it would
Right,
be
what
the
they brought
result
back,
of?
I would assume they'd bring a scope, and it would be itemized, here's the information that we're going to gather, and you know, that sort of thing.
So you're saying that, yeah, okay, so yours is an interim step, and then mine would be in the information they gather afterwards?
Correct. It would
Okay.
be mine is basically, hey, tell us what it's going to cost. There's probably going to be a consultant involved.
Yeah.
Maybe staff is not busy and they can do it on their own, but
So-
I'm kind of skeptical of
Okay,
that. She's
I'm
shaking
okay
her
with
head.
that, as long as we're taking a small step to get to the.
Yep, we're gonna,
Okay,
and
then I
that would be
withdraw
the
it.
time that we may
Yeah.
want to identify, oh, well, hey, I'd like this information too, or
Okay.
that sort of thing.
Well, and so we'll have that discussion. I'll make that motion at that meeting.
Correct. So Deputy Mayor Blackwell, it looks like you decided you didn't want to speak. Okay. Is
I'm just
that-
going to repeat the motion. So it's direction to the city manager and staff to prepare a report with assessment of costs to do public outreach for sand volleyball, pickleball, aquatic center, teen center, et cetera, for Encinitas Community Park.
Yeah, although I would say, you know, modifying the master plan to remove aquatic center, remove teen center, and replace with sand volleyball courts and pickleball courts. Because that's kind of the question that we're asking is, are the aquatics groups going to freak out?
Yeah.
What about the teens? Who's going to speak for the teens? So,
Yep, I agree.
okay.
Yep.
So it's to.
And that, yep.
For the removal, okay, so staff to prepare a report with assessment of costs to do public outreach regarding modifying the ECP master plan to remove the aquatic center and teen center and replace with sand volleyball and pickleball courts.
That's what I, yep.
Got it?
mhm,
Okay.
yep.
That motion carries unanimously.
Okay.
Thank
Great.
you to the speakers for waiting.
Thanks for hanging out. Sorry it took so long, all of you. We are now on to item 12A, councilmember initiated item from Councilmember Joy Lyons and Deputy Mayor Allison Blackwell regarding the city of Encinitas considering the creation of historic districts.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll tee it up, and then Deputy Mayor Blackwell will add some thoughts. So we've been giving a lot of thought lately to our focus areas in our strategic planning. And one of our focus areas is ensuring and preserving community character. I've also been giving a lot of thought to how passionate our whole community is, no matter who they are or where they live or what their background is, really how passionate everyone is across the board for who we are here in Encinitas, who our community is, and those resources that exist in this community that tell the stories of the people who came before us. As everyone probably knows, I'm a history geek as well, so my brain goes to historic preservation. And so I did a little bit of reaching out and spoke with some important people in that arena here in our community. So Deputy Mayor Blackwell and I today want to propose the opportunity to meet or to contribute to our focus area, this focus area on preserving community character in a way that might appeal to all 5 of our communities and appeal to our 4 districts in a very broad way that everyone could embrace and get their arms around and feel like it's a good and positive way to move forward. But we don't want to move so quickly that we are presenting anything too dramatic today. So what we are presenting, the ask today, is for us to see what it would cost, to ask our staff to tell us what would it cost to do the first step of looking at what our historic properties are citywide, looking at the historic context and doing an inventory, which would be the first step. And just to bring forward, what would that cost? Not to do anything more than that, but this would then come before us at our strategic planning for our debate as a city council to determine whether this is something we would choose to fund at our next funding cycle in 2025. So I'll just mention one more thing and then hand it over to Deputy Mayor Blackwell and then be available to answer questions. I have reached out to the Heritage Museum, both Jay Clark and Barb Grease, and they're going to bring this to their board for their consideration. But they've said big thumbs up from the Heritage Museum. I reached out to Twink Booman from the Booman Ranch and Alevenhain, and she said big thumbs up. She said she didn't have much time to help, but she said this is a thing that she would be interested in. I've also reached out to Allison Wojciechowski from Cardiff 101, to Stacy Rettel from Leucadia 101, and also Irene Poon. I haven't heard back from Irene, but both Stacy and Allison are going to bring it to their boards, and they think their boards would be very excited about it. I've talked to Carolyn Copen with the Encinitas Historic Society, and she submitted an email of support, and she did bring it before her board, and they support us moving this forward. I spoke with Bart Smith with the Encinitas Preservation Association, who oversees the boathouses, and he was excited about it as well. So I just wanted to kind of tee it up and let you know that, and pass it over to Deputy Mayor Blackwell.
Yes, thank you. Great summary. And that's what I think the ask is just how do we scope it out to say, to consider at the next strategic planning meeting and budget cycle. We do hear a lot of talk about destruction of our community character in Encinitas, but we don't hear a lot of action about what we can do to help preserve it. So I did want to join in with Councilmember Lyons on this because I think it has some merit. You can see in the staff report some of the properties that have historic designation, but we don't really have our arms around what a historic district could look like, or districts. I know some of our surrounding communities have put in historic district commissions. I know many cities have put in a really thoughtful process of how a district or a site would be designated historic. And there are a number of benefits, and I think Councilmember Lyons did a great job of laying those out in the staff report. So I'd love to see this go forward in terms of understanding what would this undertaking even look like in the initial setup of trying to get to a framework and the historic context statement, et cetera, and maybe tee it up for then. We could talk about it at the strategic planning meeting.
I would, I'm definitely interested, and the direction seems logical. I would point out that the Downtown Encinitas Specific Plan has a chapter on historic preservation, and there was also an inventory done for historic properties in downtown. I don't see it in our current online version of the specific plan for downtown, but I know it's in the print version that's on a shelf somewhere here. So I guess one of the questions would be, are we looking to go beyond what we've already done with our downtown specific plan?
Yeah, I think the umbrella is kind of bigger. The way it's put forward for this first step would be, let's consider the entire city as far as all the resources in the city. That doesn't mean that everything would be a historic district. The inventory is a framework from which you then look at where you have districts, where you can create a geographic area that would make sense, where you have a neighborhood who would be interested in a historic district. So the historic district would then, districts, it wouldn't need to be just one, it could be more than one, could be identified from this inventory of the properties across the city.
So There are a lot of unanswered questions that I think would need to be explored, so
Yeah.
I'm expecting that if in fact we get this conversation to the next step, which is the estimate, and have it part of the strategic planning, then perhaps we can get the answers there. Councilmember Ehlers?
Yeah, I'm keenly interested in it. I have lots of questions, I think, similar. Yeah, for example, are there similar, I'm thinking this, we've gone down the path where we have cooperative owners, or it's publicly owned, of applying for historic recognition of structures. And so the structures, I think, are well understood. And I think the agricultural preservation through the Williamson Act is something that's been done in the past. I think this is the next step where you're thinking neighborhoods, right? And more than one structure, or land and structure, and it could include some mix of historic structure and maybe a few modern interlopers in there. And so I'm keenly interested. We've talked about it in Alevenheim for years as, is that a construct? So are there similar examples? I think Rancho Santa Fe comes to mind. Didn't they declare their downtown a historic district with Lillian Rice buildings and all?
Yeah, there are similar examples with other communities, and that would be part of what we'd want to look at and model, could use that as a model. Sometimes I think, we kind of like to do things differently here too. And so, we might want to define how we do it here. One of the things that I've talked to people about is some people have said, well, we've thought about that before, but it just didn't go forward. And so I've tried to figure out why. And it could be because there's a concern about private rights of, private ownership. And there are examples of historic districts where, and this is what I think would work best for us, but we don't need to decide that right now, but just since you're asking, where you have the opportunity of creating a boundary that helps to elevate and educate the whole neighborhood, but everyone still has entirely all their property rights. It's not like it's almost like it's more of an opt-in if they choose to. So I think we'd want to drill down on that some more. But one of the things about having a district that on the other side, on the benefit side, is when I've talked to folks, I've talked to them about the Mills Act. And we do have some properties here in Encinitas that are historic, and they've self-selected to apply for the state Mills Act, which gives them up to a 70% advantage or reduction on their taxes due to the fact that they've joined this program that acknowledges the historic significance of their home. And so when I brought that forward, people are going, oh, well, there could be a financial benefit then if I own a historic property and I want to get involved. And if you have historic property in a historic district, it becomes a lot more likely to be able to be eligible for a Mills Act home.
And so I appreciate that. That helps me frame this better. So, I think of examples like the La Paloma building and really better part of that part of downtown could be a district easily. And, and the benefits of using the Mills Act. I'm wondering, are there I think actually if we could find ways that could help preserve our community character better, that would be great. But 100% voluntary, I don't know if that's going to do what we need. But we certainly have quite a few opportunities between even downtown Cardiff with the Mercantile.
I know.
Right? And you could go as far as the Eckie Ranch building, even SDA with the Lillian Rice designed buildings.
Yeah, I know.
We have pockets,
They're everywhere.
pockets everywhere. So
And-
I'm absolutely intrigued by it and would support it. The devil's going to be in the details, as always. So, let's go down the
All
path.
right. Very good.
Deputy Mayor Blackwell?
Good. It's nice to hear some support for at least taking that initial step forward. And in full transparency, Councilmember Lyons and I also serve on the Cultural Tourism Committee for the city, and there is some interest in looking at making parts of Encinitas a cultural arts district. That's not to be confused with the historic district, but with Pacific View Arts Center, that gives us some advantage to go back at it again, and the state is reviving their program. It will need to be a council member initiated agenda item, so you might see it coming forward again from us, but we're not trying to district everything, but these are two really interesting opportunities for the city.
Mayor, we do have a public speaker.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I'm so sorry.
Jennifer Hewitson.
Mayor and City Council, thank you for your time. And I first want to correct, my letter about the park was actually pro sand volleyball courts and aquatics for the teens. And I figured a teen center isn't available if you have pools and volleyball courts. That was what I said. Although I would love an open space park.
I thought you said you didn't want pickleball courts.
And I said, well, they're noisy. I don't even live there, but I do sympathize with people who live near them. So, yeah, thank you. I am here in full support of defining and protecting historic districts in Encinitas. I wrote a letter, but I wanted to show up and support that. I only wish it had been done, many years ago. We're running out of anything to designate and save. We are losing our history and character with every new project, maxing out density and insisting on bulldozing the historic places. I commend Joy Lyons and Allison Blackwell for putting this concept forward, so thank you. I hope this plan will find ways to incentivize the preservation of historic resources enough to protect against the profit-seeking frenzy of building that is being encouraged now. Upzoning existing historic sites is not the way to encourage preservation. So I'm positive about this, but this is the other side of it. I'd like to nominate the Self-Realization Fellowship and all its landholdings as a valuable historic resource and demand that it be removed from the destructive potential site list for upzoning put out by the Affordable Housing Task Force. This destructive practice of listing and mapping out private property, historic sites, schools, parks, open spaces for upzoning when they should be first on the list for preservation is counter to what Encinitas needs now. I won't rant about all the ways this list is counter to this great concept of creating historic districts and protecting the sites along with their dwindling open spaces. I will just say the Self-Realization Fellowship, the lands are the heart and soul of what makes Encinitas so special. The beauty, the peaceful setting, the open agricultural sites that preserve views of the ocean, town, and fellowship ashram buildings. This is iconic. It is historic and sacred. It has saved us from the dreadful, soul-crushing apartments, hotels, and condos blocking most coastal cities from the benefits of just seeing the open views of the sea. This beautiful and spoiled property should be praised and raised to the status of central, sacred heart of our town, not upzoned, so that state-mandated developer frenzy can swallow it up and destroy it forever. This is our brightest light and should be first on our list of spectacular, meaningful historic districts. I hope they will agree, but either way, get that land off of the list of feed to the wolves density disaster sites. Thank you.
Just for your information, SRF reached out to the city asking if they could be considered. So it wasn't the task force's doing. And it's just an exploratory thing. They have a lot of land, and so they've always supposed to have a specific plan that would say how they could use that land. It is zoned residential. So that's how it has evolved to the point where it is now. So I appreciate your concerns about historic preservation. So thanks for coming out. It's pretty late at night. I'm sorry I didn't know that you were here to speak on this issue. So thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Lyons.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jennifer, for coming and speaking. What I'd like to do now, since I do see some support from my colleagues, I'd like to put forward a motion to direct staff to establish a budget for a citywide historic property inventory and historic context statement appropriate to form a historic district. And so that's my motion. and understanding that this, as far as the time frame, would come forward to us next then for consideration in our budget cycle.
Second?
Well, I'll definitely second it, but I thought Councilmember Ehlers wanted to speak, so.
Well, I would second it, but I'll let you second it in this case.
Fair enough.
And it looks like you're moving your recommended action.
Yes, I did make one. Yes, I did make one edit where I added, budget for citywide historic property inventory and historic context statement, which is part of the inventory, but I wanted to be clear about that in the final recommendation.
Councilmember Ayers?
Yeah, a question, and it's truly a question, is what about structures that have been moved? And we have lots of examples, be it the schoolhouse, the Panikin, the Liebenhain Hotel. Could they be incorporated into this historic district, even though they've been moved?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Probably the answer is best from someone who's a specialist. But being that they're historic, they could be considered contributing on some level to the historic significance. It might not be on the full level, because I know, for instance, the old schoolhouse is not eligible for national or state historic preservation because of how much it's been modified.
Okay, we're ready to vote. Okay, thank you. Council member reports pursuant to AB 1234.
I attended the Encina Wastewater Authority Capital Improvement Committee meeting this morning, and that's it.
And I attended the San Elijo JPA meeting in lieu of Councilmember Hensy, and that's it.
I also attended the San Elijo JPA meeting. And next time we meet in October, we're going to go through their capital improvement program. The costs have really increased of all of their proposals, and so it's a matter of what gets prioritized. So that should be interesting.
I attended a Sandag meeting last Friday, and it was another one of those kind of bombshell independent auditor reports looking at some of the contractual issues that unfortunately plague Sandag. So management is working on a response, and there's some additional direction to drill down on some of the numbers that they had. One particular contractor was awarded a contract for $30 million, and by the time he was done, that contractor was done, the value of the contract was $60 million. So it basically had doubled without any board input, and there were several other, the top 5 contractors all had similar stories, none to that same degree. So clearly some work that needs to be done. There were invoices that were submitted that didn't have the appropriate documentation, and in some cases, invoices, the hourly rate that was billed was not per contract. So lots of those kind of things going on, and so we're working on sorting through it and figuring out how to put in safeguards to keep that from happening. And there is also a move afoot by the city of Imperial Beach. They're looking for support to get some of there's Otay Mesa East, which is going to be a border crossing location, that there will be a fee associated with trucks that are crossing there, and the money that is collected from that is split by the federal government and the Mexican government, and you know, it's formulaic, and there's an effort to get a part of that, a percentage of that money dedicated to addressing the problems that Imperial Beach is having, we're having with the pollutants, the pollution, this raw sewage pollution that's ending up in the ocean. So I may bring a council member initiated item to look at a resolution that would support Imperial Beach and their efforts to get that money earmarked. There's a lot of, I don't know how much you see, but there's a lot of, you know, strategizing to determine, to figure out the quickest way to getting the problem resolved. And it's complicated and it's expensive, but there's a lot of work going on. So, city manager report.
North County's hottest events are in Encinitas. Are you 50 or older? This Friday, 2 to 4 p.m., mingle and move. It's fall, y'all. You get to learn how to two-step, plus there's refreshments and an opportunity raffle. So everyone's invited to that. And then just, we have a lot of construction notices up on the website. If you look at our work around the city, that has a little construction cone. You'll see that there's notices going out up at paving, Beacons parking lot, et cetera. So just want to have you make sure you mention those things to people when you're out and about, because as you stated earlier, you turn every corner and there's another project going on. So that's it. Thank you.
Oh, but you forgot to mention that the city of Encinitas has been nominated for 2 Momentum Awards from Circulate San Diego, the Bike Emergency Project under Safe Streets and Vision Zero category, and the El Portal Undercrossing for Sustainable Growth Award. And that's the El Portal Undercrossing is a joint nomination with NCTD and Sandag. So congratulations. The nominations are an award in and of itself. It's recognition that we're doing good stuff here in our city. And it's unfortunate that we had to declare a bike emergency to get that nomination, but it is what it is. So,
San Diego's hottest awards
right.
go to
Momentum
Encinitas.
Awards, yes. City attorney reports.
No report this evening, Mr. Mayor.
City clerk report. No report. No reports. That's it. We are adjourned.
Wax, giving off the scent without the flame. If you insist on using open flame candles, here are some measures that you can take to reduce your fire risk.